Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're excited to see some faces here physically, and of course, to everyone out in Zoom land online, we say hello and thanks for joining us. We have a lot to cover today. This is our second session of 3 sessions that we have, and I know that we'll probably have a few people that will join on a little later, and that's quite fine. The one thing that I want to ask for those that are online on Zoom is that you have your cameras on at all times. We want to make sure that we can see your pretty and handsome faces. We want you guys to be engaged, and we also want to make sure that you're getting the content that Fort Bend County is providing to you. So we're going to go over a few housekeeping rules for the folks that are here in front of us. And then we'll start to go through our agenda, a formal welcome, and then jump right into things. So for those that are here at the chamber, if you would, make sure you sign in when you come in, physically sign on to the sign-in sheet. There are some handouts that we're going to give out today for the course that's happening today. For those that are online, I sent an email out this morning very early with copies of the presentations of the handouts that we'll have for today. So if you can download those and have those ready, you may want to print those off if you have the ability to print at home, just so we can work on those. That would be great. There are restrooms that are just around the corner here to the right, and you're welcome to go at any time. We also have some donuts and some other sugary things that keep you awake and alive. But feel free to get up and walk around. I know this it can be a little bit of a long day, and it's a lot of information, but a lot of good information. So I'd like to say hello to Floyd. Floyd Griffith is in the back. He's one of our consultants that helps out with our team. We have several consultants that are part of the team. You guys probably have met some of them. Make sure that you get engaged with your consultant. If you have not been assigned a consultant today, or haven't been assigned a consultant yet, let me know, and we'll make sure we make that happen. Okay, so I'm going to share my presentation, and we'll walk through some critical items that we want to talk about today. So hold on one second, share screen. Go. Put this into presentation mode. All right, so everyone should see our screen there. Welcome to our entrepreneurs. We are again excited to have you guys here. This is the agenda for today. We've switched up the lineup with just a little bit. I'm going to start this morning talking about our W Profits financial model, going through some of the details of that. After I finish up, we'll have Fern Dawkins, who is a very successful franchisor. She owns a number of franchises in the area, Houston area. She's going to talk about process improvement using the franchise model. We'll have Mark Winters come up at around 10 o'clock. He's going to talk about C-level leadership, executive leadership, how to hire on executives, how to make sure that you're the best CEO for your company as well. And then we'll have LaMonica Love, who's going to come in and talk about legal transactions and how to set up an LLC corporation. But for most of us that are already in business, we'll talk more about trademarks and patents, copyrights, things of that nature. Just make sure that your intellectual properties are protected, and so that no one will steal what we've worked so hard to go through. A couple of things that I want to remind you of. So again, this is the second of 3 sessions. We have had some technical difficulties in terms of the video from the first session. Hopefully we'll get that all situated by Monday. We've been working behind the scenes, but we encourage you guys to make sure that you sign up for the Learning Entrepreneur Community, TLE. It's the Fort Bend link, and it allows you to go into the self-learning portal where you can go in and do a lot of searching, find different topics that are important to you. But along with that, we'll also have videos and uploads of all the materials that we go through, and that's where we should have that video located. And as soon as we get that fixed up, we'll make sure we get that out to you. For those of you guys that are joining us for the first time, You will have to watch that video. There is tracking that makes sure that you watch the entire video. All of those things are online. So as long as you go online and go through the learning community, the entrepreneurial learning community, you should be fine and good to go. Our next session is on September 18th. So please make note of that. It is nice that we're able to do this on Zoom or face-to-face, so we hope that everyone can attend. Oh, one other thing I want to mention about the last session. So September 18th is supposed to be not only a full-blown day of course material, but was also supposed to be our pitch competition. So part of this big program, obviously, is that one, you get a chance to get access to a $5,000 grant provided by Fort Bend County. But the other piece is that we're going to put you guys in front of a number of bankers, angel investors, venture capitalists, and give you a chance to pitch your business idea and have them hopefully finance and give you guys some capital. With our group being so large, we have 93 official attendees right now, hopefully, that if they all stay and go through the program. And so obviously trying to have 93 people pitch, that would be a 2-day event. So what we've opted to do is to request you guys to provide video submissions of your pitch. That's actually a lot easier, I think, for you guys, because you have a chance to practice, record, re-record, whatever you need to do, and polish up your pitch so that it is as perfect as you'd like it to be. But we will send out emails that will give you the specifics on the format. Obviously, we want to make sure that we can view it. Lighting is right. Everything is going to be very important because this will be your only opportunity to get in front of these guys and pitch. Along with the actual video, we will probably have some type of cover letter or cover sheet that you can submit along with it so that they'll be able to review that as well. But more details will come out on that hopefully this week, but I just wanted to share that in short order. All right. One other thing that has happened here lately is that, again, because we have a financial piece of our program, unlike phase one, which was just primarily content and consulting work, we're actually giving you guys consulting work and a financial grant. For that reason, the county is going to treat this very similar to the way that they treated their other small business grant program, which means that you guys have to provide copies of your tax returns, possibly, I think right now what they've said, and it's here on the screen, obviously fully complete this course, you must have been operational as a small business as of December 30th, 2019. Your principal business must be located inside of Fort Bend County. We'll have to have a copy of your government issued photo ID of the principal owner and a copy of a tax return that's signed for 2019 and 2020. And the only acceptable versions of that will be 1120S, 1065 partnership, or 1040 with a Schedule C. So a lot of specifics, we'll send that out again, but we just want to let you guys know during the early application process right now, obviously we did not request tax returns or a copy of your ID, but before we pass out those grants, we'll have to get that information. So we'll probably send a portal, a link where you can upload that information, okay? Any questions about that?
What was the date
December, excuse me, December 30th, 2019. Yeah. That's a good question. I think that from my perspective, and this is only from my perspective, but I'll get verification. If you have your EIN, you had your LLC, the legal parameters in place, I think that would be considered as fully operational. Okay. All right. Without further ado, we're going to jump into this. Let me just check the chat and see if we have any questions here. Let's see. I think it's okay. So webinar mode, sure. Okay, that was. Let me just see. Let's type in here. Can you guys hear me and see us or see the presentation online? Everybody okay online? Okay. Excellent. All right. So we're going to jump into the presentation. So W Profits financial model, great stuff. See if I can get my clicker to work. No, not today. There it is. Getting away from it. Okay. Again, my name is Stephen Carter. I'm a part of Carter Brothers Consulting Firm. We were contracted with Fort Bend County to provide this wonderful series to you. Our firm was founded basically this Carter Brothers Consulting was officially founded 2 years ago, but we started our entrepreneurial track in 2008. I have a twin brother you guys have probably seen as well, and we both own, that's the Carter and Carter part of our firm. We've owned and operated a number of successful businesses, and we're excited to share the successes and the obstacles that we've been through, and hope that you guys have a chance to avoid some of the things that we have by sharing it with you, so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did. So we're going to talk about the Double Your Success model. And this is a model that we kind of put together as we were writing our book called Double Your Success, Principles to Build a Multi-Million-Dollar Business. But there are 8 steps, and it's been modified a bit. We'll go through each one of these steps. And normally this is a much longer presentation, so we'll try to make it as short and sweet as possible. The first one that we're going to talk about is self-belief, or being confident in oneself. Right now, we've been through a lot of things, guys, and it's been a very, very difficult year. And so the head of our organization always has to present confidence and strength and stick-to-itiveness so that our team will believe in us and will follow us through. You know, it's like when you're in the military, you got to believe in the leader to get you across to the finish line, right? Or over to the next level. So we got to make sure that we have self-belief. We're going to study our competition. We'll talk about what it means to study the competition, focusing on our customers. We'll talk about ways to increase our revenue, hire unicorns, purple squirrels. We've heard all these nicknames about how you need to get the best team possible. I think I read something about Google where they talked about the productivity of one of their Google analysts is probably 5 or 6 times as high as the normal analyst or tech guy that you see at other companies, because they only hire the best of the best. Profit first. We'll talk about profit first mentality. There's a lot that's been said around profit first as a method. Thinking long term, and then another mentality piece about burning the ship. So we'll talk about that. All right, believe in yourself. Have the Mamba mentality. So Mamba mentality came from Kobe Bryant, rest in heaven. But one of the things that he was notorious for was just kind of being like, he was the guy that he was like, if it's all on the line, if we're down to the last 30 seconds of the game, I want the ball. Like he was not afraid to be all the pressure was on him. He wanted to be the one that took the team into the championship, and he didn't have a problem with putting everyone on his back and taking the team over. So we have to have the same type of confidence that Kobe Bryant has, and what he called the Mamba mentality. And that means that no matter what has happened in the past, no matter what obstacles we've been through, your mental piece will bring you through and will get you over to the next line. And as I stated earlier, it is up to us as the head, as the CEO, as the owner of the firm, to make sure that our positivity bleeds down on our team, and our customers see it as well, right? Our customers see it, our employees see it, our vendors see it. They need to know that we're here for the long haul, and you need to make sure that you know that you've got what it takes to take it to the next level. Daily affirmations. I don't know if anyone does that. I'm a big believer in daily affirmations. You can go online, YouTube. You can listen to it while you're asleep. Put it in your ear. Listen to it while you're working out in the morning. Daily affirmations about how great you are. I am somebody. I will be successful. I will not let this stop me. This is just a roadblock. I will keep pushing. It's very important. It's very important. So just keep that positivity going, right, guys? All right. So study the competition and be different. So one of the interesting story that I read about, and we all, I think Netflix and is always talked about in some cases, and we'll talk about Netflix all the time and a little bit later. But I read the story about Instagram, and I never knew that when Instagram was first starting, they were named another company called Bourbon, and the competition at the time for Instagram was Foursquare. And if anybody remembers Foursquare, Foursquare was this app that let you check into different places. So if you were if you were here at Fort Bend Chamber, you could check in at Fort Bend Chamber. And so as Bourbon at the time was trying to figure out, looking at the competition and saying, hey, how are we going to compete with Foursquare? Because at that time, they seemed to be the biggest thing that was going on. And what they decided was that, okay, it's great that they have a check-in feature, but they don't have pictures along with the check-in. There's no photos. They're not capturing the moment. So if we add photos into what we do, that would be a game changer. That would be our differentiator. That is what will make us different. So they changed their name from Bourbon to Instagram. They incorporated the photo piece, right? And of course, they incorporated many other technical advantages to that now. But we all know now where Instagram is, right? They are now, a huge company, right? Worth billions. And what they did first was that they studied the competition. So we have to study the competition, and we have to know them better than we know ourselves. We need to know why they're successful, if they are successful, why they're failing, if they're failing, what their customers think about them, what their vendors think about them, what their employees think about them. We need to know exactly what they're doing and not doing. So we want all of you guys to, if you don't already know, make a list of your competitors. You need to make a list of your competitors both locally and regionally and nationally, because your local competitors may be great, and that's it. But if we're trying to expand bigger than local, we need to have a bigger vision. We need to think national. We need to think international. What are the big guys doing? What has been said to me in business a lot, many times is that, I think it's here. The surest way to achieve success is to model someone else who is already successful, right? Tony, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So figuring out what somebody else is doing and just tweaking a little bit is what business is all about. So figure out what the competition is doing, figure out how to do it better, and do it better. Make a list of your competitors, interview former employees. You would be surprised. A lot of former employees would love to tell you all about their former company. They may not be happy with them. They will probably give you a lot of great information. All they can say is no, ask and see. They may give you a lot of great information. You can even hire the former employees if you think it's a strategic move for you. So definitely looking at doing that is something you can do. There is an app called What Runs Where, and it's a way for you to run analytical tests on what advertisements your competitors are running and where they're running those advertisements. So if they seem to have a very successful advertising game, commercial, whatever the case may be, figure it out, replicate it, and do yours better. Study their sales funnel. So we know most companies now have a sales funnel that will get you from a public person that has just heard about the company all the way down to a client. We'll probably talk about funnels at I think our last session if you guys are not familiar with funnels, but we should all have a funnel, whether or not it's a technology funnel that you set up that starts from an ad that you have on Facebook or what have you and gets them down to a client, or if it's just your physical funnel, sales funnel that says, here's what happens when I talk to someone at a road show and get them all the way from that point to be a client. We need to have our sales funnel. But the whole key is that we're trying to be bold. We're trying to innovate where it counts. We want to be the Instagram of that Foursquare and Instagram competition scenario. Good stuff? All right. Be customer centric. Be customer centric. So a lot of times, a lot of companies make a big mistake, and that is that they don't want to hear from their customers. They don't want to know. It's honest, right? Sometimes we only want to hear the good stuff. We don't want to hear the bad stuff. Who wants to hear someone that's unhappy with our services, right? But The only way that you can change and be better is if you listen to your customers. I want to hear the complaints at my company. I encourage the complaints to come. I celebrate those. I tell my customers to tell me, how bad we are, and that doesn't happen that often, thankfully. But if they're upset, as the CEO, as the management of the company, it is your role to be the sounding board for all of those headaches and obstacles and things like that customers have. But it also gives you an opportunity to learn, to listen, learn, and act. And that's the LLA model, which means that we're going to listen to our customers. We're listening to what they're saying. We're learning from what they're saying. And then we're putting in an actionable plan to make sure that we address the issues that they brought up. And if we're doing a great thing, we're still making sure that we're going to continue to do that great thing over and over again. Because to tell you what, the other thing that you can run into, we as a company have created a successful model. And we said, oh, things are going great. Our customers are happy. I mean, we're just in a great space. But if you don't have a model that figures out how to keep that where you're replicating that day after day, time after time, if you lose an employee, get a new employee in, you start to assume that this thing is on, remote control, and it's really not. You realize just very quickly that a change in employees can knock that model off the train tracks. So you have to make sure that it's repeatable. So find your new customers. Is looking at is one of the things that I like about this. Sales is a contact sport. As the owners of our firms, we are the best salesmen for our firm, period, right? We can hire sales and marketing people all day long. They're not going to have the passion as we do. When we go in front of a vendor, when we go talk to someone, they're going to feel it because this is our company and we believe it like no one else. Sales is a contact sport. If you're sitting in the office, if you're behind the computer desk, if you're just working all day and you're not out talking to clients, your business is not going to grow. We have to be in front of the clients. We are the rainmakers. We are the ones that are going to grow this company. You have to make space for yourself to get out and do what you do best, which is meet customers, warm and fuzzy, kiss the babies, all those things that you need to do to grow your business. And you bring in a team of people to do the operations. Now, I understand that right now, a lot of us are solo entrepreneurs. We're a team of one. In order for us to grow our company, we have to bring on an additional employee. So you have to start thinking about, when am I going to get on an employee? How am I going to grow this company? I have to get some help. But make sure that you're in the field, on the ground, marketing yourself. Benefit focused marketing. When you go out and talk to your client, the questions are, for me, this is the way that I approach sales all the time. How are you doing? Great. Tell me about how your experience is going with your other staffing company. Are there any issues that you're having right now? Okay. That's interesting. Well, you know what? That issue that you're having, this is how we solve it. So my focus is on trying to figure out what their issues are that they're having right now so that I can tailor my response to, here are the things that we can do to solve those issues. I'm trying to make my approach to sales all about what is in it for them and not what's in it for me. I think what we do in sales a lot of time is that we'll come in, we have our predefined pitch deck about how great we are. And that's wonderful, but they don't care how great we are. They only care about what their issue is and if you can solve their issue. So when you come in and talk to them about how your company is great and how you're going to do wonderful things, it all needs to be centered around how you're helping out that person. And you need to make sure that everyone on your team knows that. And guess what? Sales is a role that every employee has in the company. Every employee is a salesperson. We all need to be engaged. So remember that. And then obviously the low-hanging fruit is existing customers. So before the pandemic, if you had 75 customers and now you're down to 35, we're trying to build back up. The first thing that you need to do is to go back to those 40 pre-existing customers and try to figure out how you can get them back on the team. Okay, that's the low-hanging fruit. We're going to go and make sure that we take care of our existing customers, go out to our previous customers, and then we can start looking at new customers as well. but we got to make sure we maintain our current sales base. All right. Okay. So strengthening your revenue. So those of you guys who participated in phase one, we spent a lot of time. We had a full class where we talked about pricing strategy. And I love the discussion about pricing strategy when we talk about revenue, because there's so many ways that you can increase your revenue. There's so many ways that you can increase your net profit. One of the ways that we can increase our revenue, obviously, is volume. Everyone always goes to volume. I want to sell more. I want to get more clients. I want to figure out how to get more money in the door. But we could also figure out a way to bring in more people, more money, more revenue by looking at our pricing structure. And so there are 4 different pricing structures that we can look at from a revenue standpoint. One is skimming, one is economy. Thanks, Ryan. One is premium, and one is penetration. So let's go through those a little bit. So the skimming strategy is that we're going to start off by charging the highest initial price that customers will pay, and then lower it over time. So that strategy only works in certain instances. You would be surprised that some people will only purchase an item if it's the highest price item out there, right? They assume that the highest price item out there has to be the best. They may not even do a lot of quality searching. They may not go out on Google. They'll just kind of, and I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it myself, to be honest. Like if there's a service provider and I just don't want to go through a whole lot of, research or figure out what's what, I'll search and see who's what are the prices that are coming in. And if somebody's the highest price, I'm going to assume they must be the best. So let me just go with that guy. So that's something to look at. Economy pricing just says that, hey, we're going to be the lowest priced customer out there. We're going to be the Walmart of the retail situation, and we're going to focus on volume-based sales. So we're going to lower our price, try to get as much volume as possible, and see if we can get more revenue by just increasing volume. Premium, I love, because it's all mental. That's all perception. The Gucci's of the world, the Rolexes of the world. I mean, you can't tell me that a Gucci purse that's $6,000 is somehow magically has more quality than another leather purse that is made with the same material. It's still a cow. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what other leather you can get for it, but the perceived value that goes along with being able to sell a product to someone that says that it's appealing to not only the quality piece, but it's appealing to their mental, to be able to say, this is something that not everyone else can afford. And it makes them feel good about themselves, about being able to purchase a premium item. And then penetration just says that we're gonna provide a very low price initially, and then we're gonna raise that price over time. We started a new company during the pandemic that we called the VIP PT, which was a concierge luxury physical therapy service. We bought a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. We outfitted the inside and made it into a physical therapy clinic, because our whole idea was that people were unsafe going into the clinic. So we said we'd send our clinic to you and make you feel safe. Normally that service would be $250 per session. When we started the business up, we were saying, okay, we're new to the market. We want to start it up and see if we can get some penetration. So we started out at $99, right? The great, hey, $99, you can come and get physical therapy service and we'll come to you. But our goal, and we have been slowly increasing price, and eventually we will get back up to our premium price, because it is a premium service. But that's how those pricing things work. So a lot of companies, the logos that you see up there work in a similar manner. Obviously Spirit Airlines, which is undergoing a lot of issues right now, but they're the low cost provider. And Costco has had models like that. So, interesting stuff. All right. So we can also increase sales with upsells. I love this, because this is something that I encourage a lot of companies to do. So We can increase our sales with just upselling our product, our current product, and trying to figure out how can we sell more of it, a different version of it, a more premium version of it at a higher price to our same clientele. So the first one is highlight the added value. So this comes when you go to McDonald's, when you go to Burger King, when you go to do you want the medium or the large? Do you want the super size or the whatever? So they're always trying to push you to say, for 20 cents more, you can get the large Coke, but that's what this is just highlighting the added value of just increasing size. At the end of the day, the cost that they have to provide for increasing that size is insignificant compared to the potential profit that they can make. Upgrade your materials. So you may come to some clients and you offer your perfume in a plastic bottle. But for some clients, you can say you can get my upgraded premium version in a glass bottle, or we've got some type of premier drink, and now we're going to upgrade that into our glass. Whatever the case may be, we offer it for upgraded materials, and it comes with an upgraded price. Lock them in. Subscription service. So I love the Mr. Car Wash. Mr. Car Wash I'm on this prescription service with them. I pay, I think it's $29.99 a month or whatever for a car wash. Unlimited car washes. I go once or twice a month on a good, so they're winning, right? Because they get $29.99, or I think it's up to $39.99. I don't know what it is now. But they get that every month, no matter how many times I go in or not go in. And so their whole deal is that I've locked you in for a prescription. I get money every month, and it doesn't matter how many times you use my service. It's the smartest thing ever. So I love the subscription model. Doesn't work for every business, but if you can figure out a way to do that, it always seems to be a benefit if it's done properly. Personalize something, customizing a product whenever you can put someone's name on it. The example here is like if you had a custom cigar box or a custom purse or something where you put someone's name on it. Obviously, you can upgrade costs or charge an upgrade for that. Samples. Whenever you give out free samples to people, it makes them feel obligated to try to buy something, right? And so free samples is a good way. It's an inexpensive way to get people to try out your product, but also to make them feel like they should go ahead and invest. And then throw in a freebie. It's always good to throw in something free again. It gives them an idea to. That's the big thing I see on that is the cologne. Like if you go cologne or perfume, Mother's Day or whatever, they always have the big gift package there, right? And so you can not just buy one bottle, you can get this bottle with the body wash and the lotion and they're just getting you, they're upselling you to spend more money, and everyone's winning. So and then I think we talked about a few of these with the compliment. Complete is another one, a deal that you can do. Say you're selling a plant, a very nice plant, but they need a pot for that plant, right? We just got a plastic plant, little throwaway deal, but don't you need a pot to go with that plant? And the last one is care. So if you were selling jewelry and you said you want a cleaning solution, you want a polishing cloth, just any options that you can provide to send some more revenue your way. Anybody, I'll just ask you, has anyone used any of these kind of upsell modes in your, what have you done?
So I own a craft studio, and one of the things you can do you can either do custom templates for a fee, or you can add like ribbon and greenery to make your sign look more complete.
Exactly.
Like they're small, but they add up.
Absolutely, they definitely do. Thank you for that. All right. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about how to rebuild your team. So the companies that are very, very successful understand the importance of having the right team. A lot of times we don't have a lot of choices, to be honest. We think we don't have a lot of choices when it comes to hiring people because our economic limitations may stop us, right? So obviously we're like, okay, hey, I want to get the purple squirrel, I want to have the unicorn, but he or she wants $200,000 a year. I'm paying him more than I'm paying me. It doesn't make any sense. And definitely can understand that. But that is not always the case. It takes a little bit more research. It takes a little bit more, due diligence, but you can find a great employee that is not $200,000 a year. You can find a productive employee. You have to take a lot of time in the hiring process to make sure you find the right person. But when you find the right person that is productive and efficient and brings more than their value, everyone knows the old saying that 20% of the people do 80% of the work, right? What if we could find 80% of our team that could actually do 80%? I mean, they actually all brought the value that you need them to bring. It is so important to have the right team. Spend the time up front to hire the right person. And right now, as you're trying to build your businesses back, it's time to get rid of the fakers, as I call it. There's so many people, it burns me up to walk back on the floor and somebody's on their phone or whatever, and on their screen they've got Facebook up or what but just an hour ago they were telling me how busy they are and how they can't seem to get all their work done. So fire the fakers, fire the people that, and I know, and it's tough for everybody. We're emotional tied to people. We know it's a lot going on. People need their jobs. Yeah, and we need our company to be successful. And if you're not helping us grow, then you're hindering us from growing. And don't feel bad about firing the people that you need to fire. It's going to need to happen to make you successful. Okay. Profit first. Has anyone heard of the profit first model? And anyone read the book about profit first? I'm sorry, I should be looking at my chat here. Have been doing a good job of that. Profit first is a model that came out by this guy, Michael Witz, and may be mispronouncing his name, so I apologize about that. But the profit first model, basically we think about, as entrepreneurs, right? We're inherently concerned about everyone else. So what happens is that everyone else gets paid except for the CEO or the founder of the company. Because our approach to profit and running our business is that we take our sales, we minus our expenses, and then we have our profit. And then our profit is what we take and we share with ourselves or whatever. But a lot of times when we're running a business, especially if it's a startup, there may not be any profit. So what do you do? Well, the profit first model says, well, forget about all that. I got to get mine first. Get mine first. So they flip the model upside down, and they basically say profit equals our profit minus sales equals expenses. So profit minus, is that right? I'm saying that right. Profit. Another way of saying it basically is that we're going to look at how much we want to make as the CEO, our owner first. We're going to pull that out. We're going to pull out what we have for expenses, and we're going to ensure that at the end of the day, we have enough to pay the expenses and to pay ourselves. Is the bottom line of how to look at it. If you look over to the right-hand side, they have a real revenue range, which basically says that 100% of the revenue we look at first, and then we say, how much do we want to make in profit? How much do we want to pull out as an owner? How much do we have in taxes? And then whatever is left is what we have to pay to expenses. So we adjust all of our expenses to meet what is left over at the end of the day for a profitable business. We force our business to be profitable on the front end instead of on the back end. And it's called the profit first model. One of the things that I've done for you guys that are online as well as here in the building is that I've given out some profit first worksheets that talk through the profit first model. So I think what I like to do is just spend a little time for you guys to review that profit first spreadsheet, because it talks a little bit in detail about what the model is and how it works. But the bottom line is that I think what I want each of you guys to figure out for now is to say, what do you want your profit to be? And what do you want your take home to be as CEOs and owners of the business? And then if you take those two elements and look at your sales and see what's left from an expense standpoint, let's just try to figure out how can we make our business operate with that amount of expenses left over. So let's look at how much we want to make as a company, how much we want to take home as an owner, pull that away from what your average sales have been, and see what expenses you have, what amount of money you have left for expenses. And let's try to see if we can figure out how to operate our business based upon that expense level. So let's take a few minutes, go through that spreadsheet there. And we'll take about 5 minutes just to review that, and then we'll come right back. Yep, it's the, what does it say on the top? Profit first. Yep, it's a little 3-page document. Profit first at the top. Just, yeah, not the assistant one, just that 3-page one. All right, I'm gonna keep pushing because I want to make sure we have a little break before our next class. So point 7 is about how to cut costs and spend less in a cash-strapped business. So as we just talked about in the profit first model, pull these up on the screen. In a profit first model, we have to figure out a way to cut our expenses, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to figure out what is our profit margin we want as a business, how much do we want to take home, and whatever's left is what we have left for expenses. So the way to do that is to figure out, how do I cut expenses? What do I have that's discretionary that we can lower? And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our expenses and our revenue for the last 90 days, and we're going to review it in really good detail. And we're going to try to figure out where there's some fluff. You would be surprised how many areas that you have that are fluff or additional costs that you really don't need. And even at this time, how many companies or vendors that you can go to and negotiate a better rate. So I think that we need to be all looking at that. So the examples up here is rent. So I don't know if you guys are working, if your business is from home or if your business is in a leased space. But right about this time, there's an opportunity for you to go back and talk to your landlord and talk to them about decreasing your rent, even if it's temporary. Going to them and saying, listen, everyone's going through a lot right now. We're trying to get our business back up and going. Can you give me a rent reprieve for 6 months? Can you cut my rent in half for 6 months? Can you put that on the back end of our lease? Whatever you can do to try to give yourself some cash flow, an increase in cash flow for right now. You're thinking about buying some new equipment. If you think that this is something that you really need, maybe it's not. Maybe it's maybe you can push off that purchase of new capital equipment until a year from now. Discretionary expenses in terms of internet, in terms of phone. Do you have extra costs for apps that you're paying for? Even if, for instance, Zoom, we pay a monthly deal for Zoom, and now that we're kind of getting back and into face-to-face meetings as well, maybe you don't need Zoom as much. Like any of those little things that you can look at, try to look at those costs and cut those. Obviously, employees payroll is a big cost of expense for a lot of people. So again, that's a hard decision to make. But if you have some people that are not pulling their weight, or if they're just not productive, or there's just not a need right now, maybe it's time for a reduction in force. We need to take a look at that as well. And then just looking at any other non-critical expenses that you can eliminate. We're just going to try to run as lean as possible as we can until we can get profitable and we can turn our business around. So the equation, when we talk about how to double our profits, and specifically we're trying to figure out how do we do this in short order, is pretty simple. We're looking at ways to increase our revenue. So we talked about the ways to increase revenue are ways as simple as pricing strategy. We talked about upsells and how to upsell and sell more of our existing product. We talked about looking at our existing customers as low-hanging fruit and trying to get them to sell more, previous customers, and then new customers, trying to get more volume in and from a revenue standpoint. We also talked about our expenses and trying to figure out how to lower all of our expenses that are non-critical, get rid of dead weight. And then customer service, focusing on our customers first, making sure that they're happy, listening, learning, and acting on what they tell us. And all of those things will equate to profits if they're done properly. So now is the time for us to take these strategies and try to turn them around. Bless you. It's really quite simple, but it is effective when we go and work on all three of those components. We're trying to increase our revenue, decrease our expenses, and increase our focus on customers. And all of those lead to an advance in profits and an increase in profits. And we have to always stay forward looking and thinking about tomorrow and thinking about what's next for our company and for us, and staying innovative. So the picture up here is obviously of Elon Musk and Tesla and the SpaceX program that he's recently been working on. But CEOs like these guys are always looking at what's next. And so we need to be thinking out and beyond what we have going on at the current moment. And finally, just a history lesson in terms of when we talk about stick-to-itiveness and things of that nature. So in 1519, there was a Spanish explorer, conquistador, Hernando Cortez, and he decided to seize the Aztecs' treasure. And so during that time, the Aztecs were very, very powerful. A number of people had tried to advance on the Aztecs and steal their treasure. They were very, very unsuccessful. And so he took a small cadre of soldiers, 500 soldiers and 100 sailors, and they went to the shores of Yucatan on about 11 ships. And despite the large number of people that he had in his army, there was an even larger number of people, a number of soldiers that the Aztecs had. And they had been around for about 600 years, and they were very, very powerful. A lot of people were very afraid of these guys. So some of the men, when they got to the shores and they saw the massiveness of the Aztecs, they basically said, this is too much for us to surpass. We can't beat these guys. It's just, there's no way. And they decided that, I think we're going to run. I think we're going to turn around. We're not coming, we didn't come all the way over here to go to our deaths. And so Cortez heard about the pending coup, if you will, the people that were trying to leave and go back to Spain. And he made an order overnight. He told his sailors to burn the ships. So they burned all 11 ships that they came on over from Spain to Aztec. And he basically told his soldiers that the only way we're going home is if we go home in their ships. We don't have a backup plan. There is no option for failure. Failure is not an option. Success is our only option. And so burn the ships is a mantra that has been talked about for a long time based upon the story. And the story is just basically that we're going to burn the ships. We're going to say that there's been a lot that's gone on before, and we've got to get our business to be successful. And no matter what the scenario is, no matter what the case is, we're all 100% on board and committed to this goal. And we're not going to stop until we win. And so we want everyone to walk away today with the information that we're giving you guys and feel like you are empowered to say, we're going to burn the ships and we're going to start over today and do something different. And we're going to make sure that we're going to be successful. So I want you guys to stay intrigued, stay plugged in. We're going to have a lot of great information that we're going to give you guys today. We're going to take a break for about, take a break for about 6 minutes until 9. And then we'll have Ms. Fern Dawkins come in and talk about franchise model and how to operate your business like a franchise. All right. Thank you, guys. See you at 9 o'clock. Should we get to go?
Awesome. Okay.
All right, guys, so we're going to get back started. You guys can find your way back to your seats. So it is my pleasure to bring up Ms. Fern Carty-Dockin. She is a very successful franchise owner in the Houston area, maybe even beyond Houston, but definitely has had her share or her run with a number of different franchises, specifically Smoothie King. And what we like about the franchise model is that obviously when you create a franchise, the one thing about doing a franchise is that you have to have something that's repeatable. The process has to be in place to make sure that anyone can come in at any time and just come in and follow that process and ensure that every time that a smoothie is made, it is made that it tastes the same no matter what location you're at or where you go. And so that same type of method of replication, ensuring that you have the same quality over and over and over again, is something that we need to incorporate into all of our businesses. So we asked Fern to come and talk to us about her approach to business and applying that franchise model to make things successful. So without further ado, Ms. Doc.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful to the Carter brothers for not only putting on this workshop. As an entrepreneur myself, you're in a constant state of learning when you've chosen this journey for yourself. And so workshops like these are critical to entrepreneurs at whatever stage you are in your journey, whether you're just thinking about it and you're still working your 9 to 5 or you're 5 or 10 years deep in it. There's always new things to learn. And so I'm happy to share. I've been an entrepreneur now for 7 years, and I'm happy to share a little bit of what I know about the franchise model. Now, the next slide is, and of course, it wants to quit on. I'll just do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, you should. Let's see if it's...
It was working a second ago too. There we go. No worries. Anyway, this slide is just about a little bit about my background. I did undergrad at Emory University, University of Arkansas School of Law, where I got my JD. I practiced law for a few years with in-house for Walmart Stores Incorporated. I was a healthcare attorney for them. I supported their pharmacy and vision center business. That's my background. I actually moved to Houston because I was getting married. And the crossroads for me, I know a lot of entrepreneurs have this question, is like, how did you make the leap from corporate to getting into business? And for me, it was sort of geographical. I was ready to leave Bentonville, Arkansas. So my fiance then proposed. I was like, hey, I'll come to Houston. And I was offered the opportunity to work remotely, but only for 6 months. I'd have to return to Bentonville. So I used that time to sort of figure out what I wanted to do next. And I did apply for other in-house counsel jobs at companies here in the Houston area, but I decided that I wanted to try to get into business. And I'm going to take this opportunity to say that I chose franchising for many of the reasons we're going to discuss today about why the franchise model is critical to your business operations. So many of you may have your own idea. Maybe you have a bakery, or you do hair, or you have some process or products using your service that you uniquely make that you put out there in the world, and that is your business, right? Or some service that you give as your business. But for me, I didn't have anything like that. I mean, obviously, I could have practiced law under my own name, but I didn't want to do that anymore. So franchising was attractive to a business owner like me because there was a repeatable operational manual already in place. I could pick from brands that were already established, that were already doing well. I could see, I had visibility into what their numbers were and what the rates of return would be. So I wasn't going out on my own. And so I started with Smoothie King. And it wasn't Fern's Smoothie Shop. That's different. I have no idea if people would show up to Fern's Smoothie Shop. I'd have to come up with recipes on my own. I'd have to market it, like, hey guys, there's this new place called Fern's Smoothie Shop. Please come and visit me. And I have to beg for you to come. And so, but buying into a franchise, the benefit to a business owner wanting to get into business in that model is All of that stuff is already laid out, and you can sort of make a cleaner decision about what your projections would look like going forward. And so that's what I did. Alrighty. So what is process improvement? So let's take a step back, right? When a business it's running, it's doing its thing, right? And you want to expand, maybe you want to open a second location, right? One of the things that's going to be important, even if you're going to run both locations yourself, is for the employees that are working for me, are they going to be able to repeat what I'm doing effectively and efficiently, right? And so it's important to take a look at your processes and see how you can streamline those so that other people can do the job well in the same way that you want it to be done, maintaining your standards, correct? So your processes include, your end users, and it includes other vendors and so forth that you'll be working with. So any of the processes involved in whatever product or service you're putting out there into the world. Process improvement is not something that you do one time. So it's not like, well, let me do process improvements today so that I can open my next location. It's actually a continual thing. A good example of that would be with the pandemic that we are experiencing. One of the process improvements that Smoothie King had to make was we had to maximize stores that had drive-through locations, and we had to offer curbside, not just Smoothie King, all kinds of restaurants. They had to come up with curbside operations and everything else. You've seen all of these businesses pivot into ways that you could safely access their product or service. That is still a process of improvement. And if you're a large company like a franchise, it has to be repeatable. Everybody has to be able to do it, right? So process improvement is something that you continue to do over time. As technology advances and there are apps and things like that in your business, you always want to take a look at what's available in the landscape for you to improve your processes. Okay, so the franchise model. Franchising is simply an established business model, and it's an expansion strategy to sort of get your business out there faster, all right? So I'm going to give two examples. So you have McDonald's and you have Walmart. McDonald's is a franchise business and has roughly 13,500 stores in the United States right now, okay? Walmart is not a franchise business and owns about 5,000 stores. Now, these two businesses have two different business models for very good reason. So Walmart is not an easily repeatable business. A McDonald's is probably 2,500 square feet of space each store, right? Maybe 25 employees working in there at the same time. A Walmart store's footprint is somewhere around 100,000 square feet or more, and you probably got 50 people working in there at any given time, or 100 if you have people working in the back. It's not an easy model. There are millions of SKUs in a Walmart store. In a McDonald's, we're operating with a very select group of products, right? We have breads, we have meats, we have very limited vegetables. We're dealing with sodas and things like that. Very, very repeatable. It's sort of a compact model that can easily be repeated. That's not the case for a company like Walmart, right? So Walmart owns all of its stores. It also owns all of the risk. If something goes wrong, if you slip and fall in a store in a Walmart, right? That's Walmart Corporation. That is their deal. They have to deal with all of that. They have to pay for the construction of all of their stores. They employ everybody that works there. So that company has over 2 million employees. Whereas McDonald's is a corporation for 13,000 stores, they don't personally employ all of the people that work for McDonald's. Each individual franchise store is responsible for those employees that work for that company that owns the franchise. So they take away some of the employment risk there. They can move a little bit faster because as you get individuals to buy into your franchise and build a store, you can get multiple stores on the ground in several different states at many different times all at once. And you're not bearing sort of that risk that's involved with putting them up, the costs involved with doing it and so forth. So franchising, you could say is a quicker, faster, better model. I mean, there are arguments on both sides, but essentially that's the reason for doing it, right? You kind of divest yourself from all of the responsibility it would take to sort of repeat this model on your own. And so what makes a franchise business attractive to, what you would offer as a franchisor is you would, for a fee, so you would create all of these processes. And then for a fee, you would offer a potential franchisee the training, you would provide them operational manuals, a startup package, you'd give them ongoing support and marketing support and other things. So that franchise fee that they pay to you, and then the royalties from the sales that they pay to you or any annual fees, in return for that, you are still going to provide the blueprint and sort of an evolution of the blueprint for them to continue to operate underneath your brand. Okay. There are 3 general types of franchising. You have product distribution franchising, which is like Coca-Cola, Ford, and Exxon offer this type of this model. Manufacturing franchise, like Hyundai's car manufacturer, they're providing the blueprint on how to build those cars to independent companies that buy in. And then the business format franchise, which is what I'm most familiar with, and what most people are most familiar with, are going to be your McDonald's, your Smoothie Kings, your Dunkin' Donuts, and so forth in that model. Where in that scenario, the business format is what's laid out in exchange for the monies that are paid to you as the franchisor. Okay. Companies that would not be suitable for franchising have a couple of different characteristics. If your profits are relatively low, franchising may not make sense. If you offer a real personal service, so if you're a massage therapist, for example, and people, or that's actually not a good example because you could technically train other people to massage in the way in your technique, right? But let's say, I don't know, you're a tarot card reader and you want to franchise that business. Well, that's based on your ability intuitively to do a particular thing. Maybe the way that you do hair, you could teach people in your technique or what have you, but maybe people really want to come to you. So you can't really franchise yourself for your very personal brand if there's something you do uniquely. If you're a nanny, any sort of personal service is sort of difficult to franchise. You can certainly train people on the model, and sometimes it works, but oftentimes you'll see that a clientele in that scenario is built on the personal relationship they have with the individual, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to repeat and to operationalize and scale in a big way. Regulatory issues can also preclude you from being a franchise. It may not be something that can be can happen in every state. There could be licensing concerns that make it difficult and so forth. At the bottom, you'll see there, obviously, you don't want to franchise your business to sort of cure current business issues. So if you have one business that's going under, you don't want to like start another one to try to shore up the one that you're doing. What you want to start is a business that's doing really, really well, and you want to grow it, and you want help growing it, or you don't want to grow it yourself, and so you want to provide a path for other people to grow this business as well. Businesses that are suitable for franchising, like I was saying a second ago, they have already been successful as a brand. People know and recognize the brand. They're looking for it. It's something that they're really interested in having. They have a compelling sales proposition, so you're able to show potential franchisees, hey, this is the amount of, this is what our sales revenue looks like. These are what our operational costs are. You know, there's money to be made here. People are excited about the brand. We have processes in place that are easy to follow. We can share with you the recipes. We can share with you the, what your space needs to build out and look like. We know what equipment you need, and we can tell you all of those model numbers. Geographic location is important because not all businesses do well in all parts of the United States. So if you have a business that's going to do well regardless of where it is, that's a plus. I'll give you an example of that. Smoothie King, we sell smoothies, and in the North, it was a difficult go for the business in the beginning because when it's cold, nobody wants a cold drink, right? And so what sets Smoothie King apart, though, is that we're more than just a juice brand. We're a lifestyle brand. It's a fitness brand. It's about a health purpose brand. And people are thinking about their health year round, regardless of the season. And so whereas you might not want ice cream, for example, on a cold, snowy day in New York, if you've just gone to the gym, you're going to want your smoothie. And so that was something that Smoothie King, when they realized they were having that difficulty in that region, that geographic region, they had to pivot and sort of figure out, how do we get our customer base to understand what our product is and want to use it year round? So there are things about geography that you may have to overcome. Product and service consistency is important. When you go to McDonald's and you order a cheeseburger here or in California, you want it to taste the same. A repeatable model, something that's easy to repeat. If there's a lot of guesswork for the franchisee about what to put together, what kind of this or that to use, people are going to be less interested in buying in, and you're going to diminish the value of buying into your company. And a proven track record. Right. It's not impossible to sell concepts or like, hey, I have this really great idea and you want to franchise it right away. It's not impossible to do, but more than likely you're going to want to have had that business be established for a while. And so you can tell people, hey, for the last 5 years, in the last 2 years, the last 10 years, we've been able to do X, Y, Z. And so we're ready to franchise this brand. I'll tell you a bit here about Smoothie King's actual story. So Smoothie King was started back in 1974 by a husband and wife, Steve Kunow and his wife. And he had food allergies, and they ran a little vitamin shop in New Orleans. And anyway, he started experimenting rather with different fruits, making smoothies and things he could eat because he had a lot of food allergies. He couldn't eat a whole lot. So he'd make these smoothies, and in the vitamin shop, he'd just give them to his customers like, hey, try this. Or, if you're having inflammation, try this. I've, been blending pineapples and strawberries or this or that, and it's really helped and so forth. And it kind of took off. People were like, these are good. They started coming to the vitamin shop for the smoothies. So he carved out a little space in his store where he just made smoothies and was selling them. Then from there, he needed a whole separate store just to sell the smoothies. And then another. And then people actually approached him and said, hey, what are your recipes for these smoothies? I want to open a shop in Metairie. I want to open a shop in Lake Charles. And the idea of franchising came to him actually when he realized how popular these smoothies were becoming. And he recognized his inability to sort of service all these people on his own. And so then it made sense to go ahead and write those recipes down, put those processes in place, and then sell that concept to other people who wanted to buy into the model. Okay, 4 steps in optimizing your franchise processes. Number 1, you want to unify your data. So at Smoothie King, as a franchisee, they have a point of sale system called Brink that I'm able to log into, and I can see at any given moment, there's also an app on my phone. I can see how many smoothies are being sold, what size is being sold, which particular smoothies are being sold at any time of day. I can see how many people are on the clock. I can see how much that labor is costing me. I can see, what the tax breakdown for the day is, so on and so forth. Now, unifying data like that is important because you want your franchisee to be able to understand, are they being successful right away? And so coming up with a way to put together all of your data in a place where they can find it and see it and understand operations is going to be critical. Next, you want to identify your key performance indicators. So for example, if you had a gym, a key performance indicator might be how many memberships you sell in a month, what time of year people sign up for them the most. You want to have this data, you want to have these key performance indicators to share with people so that if they're buying into your business, they know what to look for to know if they're doing well. You're going to want to align your actions to drive that KPI behavior. So if there are key performance indicators that you know about, then what can you do to make sure that that behavior is encouraged by your customers? And then finally, you're going to want to standardize and automate. And we've already talked a little bit about that. Okay, unifying your data, that's the foundation for all processes. You want to have a solid set or one area where people can sort of see your data. And if there's not a single source that they can group it from, you want it to make it easily accessible. So we talked about KPIs a bit. Those are your key performance indicators. I'll give you a little bit, I'll give you an example of KPIs here. So they're leading and lagging indicators. So back to the gym example. A leading indicator might be how many people sign up in a month, right? But a lagging indicator for any business would be what your sales were for the past year. So a leading indicator is going to tell you in real time. Think of it this way. It'll tell you in real time, am I doing really well? 10 people signed up this morning in an hour, 25 people came in at lunchtime and signed up. That's telling you in real time that you're either having a surge or that there's a lag, right? So that's telling you right now what's going on. But your sales from the previous year, you can't do a whole lot about it. It's already happened. And it's good information to project and forecast, but it's dead, right? It's happened, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do to change it or adjust it one way or another. You're going to want to set compelling benchmarks. You're going to want to establish expectations for your business that make people excited to invest in your business and to reach those benchmarks. So you want your franchisees to be incentivized to try to get to those benchmarks so that you keep your brand standards high. And you want to be important to both your KPIs need to be important both to you as the franchisor and to the franchisee. So for me, I know that Smoothie King is invested in how many smoothies I'm selling per day, right? So they have operations support, they have marketing support, they have conferences every year, they have process improvements, ways that innovations that can make my store run better and faster. That's important because I'm paying them a lot of money. And I need to know that they're invested in me making a lot of money. You don't want to invest with a franchisor who's like, here's the model, and I don't care what happens. You can sell 2 smoothies or 10 smoothies, doesn't matter to me. You want it to matter to your franchisor that you want to see an invested relationship in those key performance indicators. You're looking at them, they're looking at them, and that you guys are working together to continue to drive your sales. Okay, I kind of got ahead of myself. That's what this slide really talks about. You want to align your actions to drive KPI behavior. And so you want to do that as the franchisor, and you want your franchisees to see you doing that, and you want them to be invested in it as well. If you have a business here in Houston that you started and you got folks opening locations in North Carolina, you can't be on the phone with them every day like, okay, let's drive sales, let's have our morning bakery sales be XYZ. They need to want that as well. You want to create that that drive. So those key performance indicators need to be at the forefront of the communications you share with them, of the materials that you share with them, and you need to be constantly highlighting their importance. Best practices is a really good example of this. So as a franchisee, I might realize in my store in real time that making the smoothie a certain way is problematic. Maybe it's the shape of the bar. Maybe it's, okay, we have all these steps. We start with some pumps of water, then we add fruit, then we add the protein powders, then we add the ice, then we put it on the blender. But maybe the way my store was built out, the ice bin's back here. So if I got a team working, they're doing like this, but then they have to turn around like this, and then they got to come back and then go to the blender. But when we're really busy, when you look at all those steps, it slows us down. Starbucks has the same issue. Anytime you have a custom made product like that versus, McDonald's where you're pulling a sandwich off of a shelf, it's custom made. We don't know what the smoothie is until the customer says what it is, right? So we have processes in place. So best practices are important, and it's a relationship that you have with your franchisees as well. They might tell you, hey, we're baking these cupcakes the way you told us to, but I'm realizing that at this temperature, this is happening or something's happening. That feedback goes back to the process improvement we talked about in the first slide. You're going to want to take that and be able to improve upon it and share those best practices with your franchisees all the time. So having a good understanding of that and sharing that with your franchisees is very important to having your KPIs continue to drive sales in your business. Standardize and automate kind of goes without saying. A good example of automation. So back to this smoothie bar example I was giving y'all. One of the things we still do at Smoothie King is we have to rinse the blenders after each smoothie is made with a power rinser. It's a power rinser that's part of a faucet. So we have to pull it off the faucet, hold the blender, and spray it out ourselves. If you've ever been to Starbucks takes those blenders and they turn it down on a little power washer that washes it themselves, and then they put it back. That's really quick, right? Well, franchisees, we said something at Smoothie King. We're like, look, we have to turn around and it takes us, 30, 45 seconds to rinse out a blender and put it down when these power rinsers do it in 10 seconds. Okay. And so that's an automated process where now that power rinsing is happening and we're taking out the human element of having to work the elbow to get it done. And it does help us to move a lot faster. And now with drive-through being very important because of the pandemic, we've got to be able to custom blend these smoothies better, quicker, and faster. So that sort of automation is, that's an example of automation. That's important to the business. In the McDonald's business, there's so many things that are automated in the back in terms of how the temperatures are already set on those fryers and the ovens and things like that. They take a lot of the guesswork out of the human element that makes the business easily repeatable. Okay, taking your the steps that you need to take to become a franchise business are listed up here. First, you want to determine if it's right for your business. We've discussed that a bit in detail. Next, you need to come up with a franchise disclosure document, an operations manual. You'll want to register any trademarks that you have, establish your franchise company, which you can do with the help of a franchise attorney. You need to register and file your franchise disclosure document. That's what FDD stands for. And then create your sales strategy and set a budget. Yes.
Quick question for you, Ms. So thinking about this from the position as a business that may want to franchise one day.
Mhm.
When you were considering who you wanted to do business with as a franchise, I mean, obviously Smoothie King, but I'm sure there were other options as well. What made you decide to go with, say, a Smoothie King versus McDonald's or whomever?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a really good question. And it actually explains in a very personal way all of the things we discussed in these slides. When I looked into what franchise to buy into, and I vetted a few, I actually was approved for a different brand. I ultimately didn't end up going forward with that brand here in Houston because they would have been new to the market, but and it would have been a heavier lift. But Smoothie King was attractive to me because a Smoothie King is built in 1,500 square feet or less of space. So I knew that if I was going to get into a lease, I wasn't getting into a lease for a whole building or a ground lease that was really expensive. It'd be a small space. I knew that I would need fewer than 10 employees. And what I liked about it was we were only dealing with fruit, protein powders, and ice. There's no meat, there are no knives, there's nothing hot. You know, I'm an attorney, so I was of course thinking about risk and people getting hurt. And so what I liked about that is like, I don't have a bunch of teenagers running around with sharp things or hot things or whatever the case may be. And so the model was repeatable, it was organized, it was operationally simple to me, right? And so I thought, you know, if I want to get into franchising, this is a good place to start. Maybe I will get into McDonald's or Burger King's or hotels or other larger franchises, but at least I was learning, I was cutting my teeth on a model that I could stomach. And then the franchise fees, it also fit within my budget because, you know, franchise fees can range anywhere from $2,000 to $2 million. And so Smoothie King sort of fit right in the budget for me. And so that's kind of what led to my decision. I looked at all of the things we discussed in the first few slides. Can they give me operational support? Am I out there by myself? Would I have to market it on my own? Or do they provide that for me? And I felt like they had really good support. And I thought this is a great way to get started. Yes.
So there was no time for the product itself. It was strictly a business.
So the longer version of the story is this. I first walked into a Smoothie King when I was 19 years old. I remember the day, I remember where I was, and I remember the first smoothie I had. It was a Caribbean Way smoothie. It was at a Smoothie King on Claremont Road in Atlanta, Georgia, across the street from my college. And I walked in, and I remember I could not understand the menu. So if you guys know Smoothie King for a while, before they had the red crown, back when it was the yellow circular sign with the purple, and they marketed a lot to like folks that went to the gym. Right. So when you walked in, it was a lot of this like creatine, this muscle punch, that, you know. So I walked in, I was like, oh God, I don't know what to get. I had not come from the gym, like wasn't really working out. And so the guy that helped me, he was like, don't worry about the menu. He's like, I'm going to make you a smoothie that's going to change your life. Those were his words. I was 19 years old. I never forgot that. He made me a Caribbean Way, and I walked out, I was like, this is the most delicious smoothie I've ever had in my life. And so that stuck with me. And I've shared that story with Smoothie King. So they know about it. So 10 years later, I found myself buying my own Smoothie King franchise. So it's really a full circle moment for me. So I will share this. It was a bit of passion, being passionate about the brand, loving the product. I found myself living in Bentonville, Arkansas. There were no Smoothie Kings there. And so I traveled a lot for work at the time. And I knew where every Smoothie King was in airports. Like I knew where it was in the Dallas airport. And I would get on the train if I had a connection to go get one. So I was really passionate about the brand, but the numbers have to also make sense. I don't want to mislead people and tell you that you should do it one way or the other, because you could be really passionate about a franchise out there that nobody's going to. And you won't make a lot of money, or it's not doing well in Houston, or you might want to bring a brand here from your hometown. But if Houston doesn't have the appetite for it, you might find yourself in trouble. So passion isn't the only answer. You definitely want to look at the other things we discussed, the geographical location, whether the model is really repeatable and easy for you to do on your own, and what the marketing lift would be for you if you had to sort of bring a brand to Houston on your own. So it was sort of a perfect storm for me. Smoothie King is based out of New Orleans, and Houston is their second highest grossing market. So people know Smoothie King. When I turned on the lights to my store, I did not get my marketing together as much as I should have prior to opening. I was very nervous about turning on the lights because I didn't think anybody was going to come. Because I was telling my husband, I was like, I did not, go around and like give out the coupons and do all this stuff and do a grand opening sign and all this. I just did not do it. I turned on those lights, and there were folks in that drive-through. Because people know the brand. That's the value of franchising. As soon as they see that Smoothie King light come on, they're there. And so again, that would not have happened if it was Fern's Smoothie Shop. I'd have been in there by myself. So until I got you guys to know a little bit more about it.
Two other questions.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
No, please, we can.
So Carla Tyson Howard asked, how long did it take you, how long did it take before you saw a profit from your franchise?
So again, because I bought into a brand that's very well known in the area that I opened the stores in, I was able to turn a profit after the first year. So the store did extraordinarily well. Actually, within the first 6 months, we opened in October of 2015, and by about April of 2016, we were able to see our profits, to see a return on our investment. And that's due, like I said, primarily to it being a brand that was very well loved in the Houston area already. And so I think our projected sales for the first year were 425, and we did 650 in the first year alone. So it blew everybody's socks off. Smoothie King, mine, everybody's socks were off. We just, just really did well. And so we were very excited about that.
And is this your own, you just have one location, or you have multiple?
I have multiple locations. And so where I'm getting ready to build, there are 4 locations, and some are operational in the Pearland area, and the others are being developed in the greater Third Ward.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. So again, a model that's repeatable. Smoothie King was a model that after I worked with it for a year, I realized, hey, I can do more of these. The processes are all in one place. They have systems that allow you to run multiple stores from that same app I was telling you about. So they make it easy for you to open separate locations if you want to. All of your data can be pulled into one. Yes.
So if somebody wanted to buy into your franchise, would they go to Smoothie King, or would they be able to come to you to purchase locations from you, and then you are the franchise?
That's a really good question. So generally speaking, you buy a franchise from the franchisor across the board. Actually, you buy the franchise, you buy into the franchise from the franchisor, actually across the board. Now, purchasing a location from an individual business owner is also a possibility, but you still have to buy the rights to that franchise from the franchisor. So let's say you went to Smoothie King and you're like, I want to open a store. And so you'd buy a franchise, you'd sign a franchise agreement with them, and we'll go over that a little bit really quickly, sort of like the legalese and technical stuff, but I'll get to it quickly for y'all. So you'd sign the documents with them. You have 2 options at that point. You can open a brand new store. So you would look for a space to open that Smoothie King in, or you could buy a store from an existing franchisee. And that's when the relationship would become where you might come to me. And if I'm selling my store and you just bought in, you might say, I don't want to build a new one, Fern. I want to take over this one. I'm selling it. So then you buy it from me.
And then
But I can't unilaterally sell it to you. You would still have to be vetted and approved by Smoothie King to purchase.
And then the relationship is still between them and Smoothie King. They only, the only relationship between you and them
Would be the sale. Correct. That's it. Yeah. Once I sell it to you, then that franchise now belongs to you. That store number would be assigned to you, and I'd be completely out of it. Yeah. All righty. Was there another question on there real quick? Yes, ma'am.
How long did you find that you were spending in the store as a day-to-day operations before you were able to kind of remove yourself, even with the processes?
So I told myself I was going to manage that store by myself for 6 months before I even thought about turning it over to a manager. And I was able to turn over those operations in 3 months because the model is so easy. But I did spend, with any business, it's when it's your baby. I was there. We opened at 6 and closed at 10. I'd literally be there all day. I'd go home, sleep for 3 hours and go back. And it's just something you're going to do. I can't talk you out of it one way or another. You're going to do that. And it's important. I also wanted to know everything about that business. So, and even to this day, my store managers, they know there's nothing in that store they're doing that I don't know how to do, whether it's taking out the trash or cleaning the grease trap or, serving the smoothies. And that's important. You want your employees to know that you understand what's going on with them, what they're doing. And back to the process improvement piece, if they're saying, hey, we're really having trouble doing XYZ task. If you don't know what that task is, or you've never done it yourself, you can't actually work through that solution. So on the franchisor side, what that looks like is Smoothie King owns, and many franchises do this, they will own certain corporate stores. So there's certain Smoothie Kings that are owned and operated by Smoothie King. And you might run up on a McDonald's and you'll see on the little window, it might say owned and operated by an independent franchise, and then it'll tell you who that LLC is. Or sometimes it might say owned and operated by McDonald's Corporation, and that's because they own it. The value of owning their own stores is that now the corporation is actively in that store with the processes. So they know what it's like hiring employees. They understand what it feels like making those sandwiches or whatever's going on. And then the conversation between franchisee and franchisor is a lot cleaner because we actually understand what's being done. If you have a franchisor that doesn't own any locations or anything like that, I would, it would just, for me, it'd be a note to self that they're not running these businesses and they just might be taking the money, and that could lead to a disconnect in terms of, what the operations are like. So it'd just be something I'd flag.
Sorry, I have a couple
Yeah.
more questions that came up. Jasper Lorraine says, how supportive are the franchisors? Do they send trained workforce initially to help you get your employees trained, especially say in the first year? And you think that there will be a difference between, say, a McDonald's and a Smoothie King from that perspective?
So I tell people that are interested in franchising, I get this question a lot. When you are looking at a franchisor that you want to buy into, you have to remember, just because their brand is popular doesn't mean that they're the right franchisor for you. So there are a couple of things that you want to look for. You want a franchisor. For me, I want a franchisor that owns some of its stores, because I want to know that they understand the operations. I want a franchisor that provides operational support, both at the outset. So are you going to come train my employees? Or do I have to do it myself? I also ask questions like, what happens when I'm in trouble? Everything's great when relationships are going well, right? In any scenario, in a marriage, in a business, across the board, right? When things are great, they're just great. What happens when things go wrong? What happens when my sales are down? What happens when I'm dealing with high turnover? Where do you come in? And so that's something a franchisor should be able to explain to you. Hey, we have operations consultants. They'll come visit you 3 times a year. We do business reviews where we come check out your operations and so forth. And those are things that Smoothie King provides to me. I'm pretty sure McDonald's ops support is roughly the same. I don't know personally, but I will tell you that Smoothie King sends a trainer that came and trained all of my employees. They stayed with me through the first 2 days of being open. These op consultants come out throughout the year periodically to do business checks. Then annually, we do a business review where they come and do like a 3,000 point check on the store. It takes them about 4 hours, and they look at everything from the way the team members are dressed, how the smoothies are made, how they taste, whether my freezers are at temperature, literally everything. Is the paint chipping on the building? They literally look at everything. They put that together in a score, and that score is recorded. And then that's how they also benchmark it. Is a store doing well? Is a store an average performing store? Is a store sort of in trouble? And then based on those key performance indicators that come through on that business review, they're able to say, okay, Fern, your store is failing or your store is doing excellent. And here's where you need help. And here's the help that we provide. And so all of that's outlined in the franchise agreement and sort of in their operational processes. So when you're vetting a franchisor, you want to see that. You want to see that they're invested in you doing well. Alrighty. Determining if franchising is right for your business. Number one, all of the things we talked about. Do you have a repeatable model? Do you have automation in place? Do you have standardized processes and things that you can sort of put together? And if the answer to all that's yes, you're in good shape. You will have to pull together a franchise disclosure document, and more on that later. That an FDD is an important document that discloses to the franchisees lots of things about your business. What your revenues are like, if you're involved in any lawsuits, if anybody on your board or in your C-suite has ever filed for bankruptcy, lots of things. Because people sometimes can use the franchise model to hide, to the point that was made in a slide earlier. Maybe there's some things going on in a business, and so they try to sell franchise models to sort of make money to shore up the original business, and that's problematic. So back in 1979, I think, the FTC got involved, the Federal Trade Commission, and they created the franchise rule, which requires federally that any franchise, in order to sell, has to provide a franchise disclosure document. And by law, you have to give that document to the franchisee, and they cannot sign it before 14 days have lapsed. State laws can be more restrictive, so a state can decide that maybe that's 20 days or something longer, but the federal rule is 14 days. So they send you that document, you can't sign it before 14 days, and the reason for that wait period is that it's a lot of information to pour over. And what the government essentially was trying to do, or the FTC was trying to do in this scenario, is just protect people from getting involved in a business, spending a lot of money in a sinking ship. And so it just provides for enough time for you to sort of pour over all of that information. An operations manual is going to be critical. You have to provide that to your franchisees. Got to know how to operate the business. And you would want to register your trademarks. If you have signage, if you have logos, you want to make sure all of that's registered. for a few reasons. You don't want it to already be owned by somebody else, because I promise you, as soon as you put that out there, that person, you're going to get a letter from their lawyer. And to the extent that you already sold franchisees on a trademark that's not registered, not only have you opened yourself to exposure legally, but now you've exposed those franchisees to being sued as well. So you want to make sure all of that's taken care of. You would establish your franchise company. This normally starts out as an LLC. That's what I did. You could do it as a sole proprietorship. I wouldn't advise that. Limited liability corporations provide some protection from you personally and your business. So you want to do that. Then you register and file your FDD in your state, and set a budget. What is it going to cost for somebody to buy into my model, et cetera? How much is it going to cost me to support them ongoing? So this is just the conclusion. Look, it's a great model that even if you don't want to actually turn your business into a franchise, I think some of the concepts we discussed today are important just for you to operationalize your business, period, because a repeatable process that's standardized and automated, that's clearly conveyed to your employees, key performance indicators that can be communicated to the people that work for you, even if it's just you and a couple employees, is really critical. No one can be you in your business. That's something that's not replaceable, but your processes and operations are. And so you want to have that in place if you want to be successful. So are there any other questions?
Yes. I have, and I'm just reading, these aren't my questions. Well, some of them were, but I'm reading the questions from the chat. So Peter asked, and this is if you want to give average or your personal, it's up to you. What is your average net margin after all expenses are paid? And what's the size of the space needed to run a Smoothie King and rent for such a space? So I think you said 1,500 square feet or smaller.
Yeah.
But what's your average net margin, or the average for a normal Smoothie King owner?
Yeah.
If you want to share that. In there.
Sure. So averages for a Smoothie King are actually between, in terms of size, I'll go down the list here. So in terms of size, you want anywhere between 800 to 1,200 square feet is actually the sweet spot. The 800 square feet models, you'll see maybe like mall kiosks and places, airport kiosks and places like that. And maybe other small spaces, but 8 to 1,200 is kind of like a really good space. My very first Smoothie King store is in a 1,750 square foot space, which is kind of big. But we maximize that space with a walk-in freezer at the back, so I can store lots of strawberries. I guess, have to use a lot of room, utilize the room. But so there are some stores that are a little bit bigger, but you're really not going to see much over 1,500 square feet for a Smoothie King. The restaurant industry sort of across the board has a net margin of about 5%. That's why the restaurant industry is difficult, because the margins are so slim and they have to be run really well in order for you to sort of capture that money. The good thing about quick service restaurants, or QSRs, which Smoothie King is those margins, you can see them more like 10 to 15%. If you run your business really tight, 18%. And that's really good from a restaurant perspective, because any other restaurant, they're at 5. So 15, if you're doing 15 to 20%, then you followed all of the slides here, your operations are tight and you're keeping it together. And if you work in the business yourself and you're saving on that labor, then yeah, you can sort of maybe capture a little bit more. Mm-hmm.
One other question on the chat. Actually, 2 other questions on the chat. Sorry. How long does it take to be up and running once you've signed the agreement with sales?
That time frame is sort of all over the place. I think what Smoothie King is saying now is like 9 months, I think, is what they tell people. And that's not being disingenuous. I mean, in a perfect world, that's about how long it would take. But the reality is you're dealing with a lot of real-time circumstances. So you sign your franchise agreement, then the very next thing you'll do is you'll look for space. So Smoothie King and many franchisors will provide you with they have their own real estate department. So you'll have a real estate advisor or what have you. That person will work in conjunction with your own realtor. They're not going to provide you with a realtor. So you have to get your own realtor, and you guys are going to kind of look for space. And that process could take no time if you're in an area that there is a space, or you came to them knowing that there's a space near your house you want to go to, and so forth. So it could take no time. That landlord's ready to sign a lease with you and what have you. It could take a while. Maybe there are no end cap drive-throughs available. Maybe there's some natural disaster. I had some delays with my other stores because of Hurricane Harvey. You couldn't get a landlord to get on the phone with you. They were trying to get their, people were underwater. So there was a long wait for that second store because of that. So there, there are a lot of factors, is what I'm trying to get at, is there are a lot of factors that can sort of delay that timeline. My very first store, I actually did not open until 15 months after signing the franchise agreement, because we found a location, then the landlords changed hands. So it was a new landlord. They didn't want a Smoothie King there. So we started looking somewhere else. We got into an LOI with the somewhere else. And then the shopping center changed hands again. And then they were like, hey, we want you back. And so it was kind of like this dance, and it just took a while. So I say that to say there are lots of real time factors that can go into play there. So finding your real estate and actually building your space can drag out the longest. Right now, for example, post-pandemic, there are lots of construction delays and things like that. So it could take a while for your space to actually be built. But generally, in a perfect world, you're looking at 9 months, but it can take you 18 months. Yes, ma'am.
So in reference to the building process, do you choose contractors for that, or is that something that's provided?
You do. So that's the thing about franchising. Smoothie King only wants to be involved in its brand and its processes. The point of divesting into the franchise model is that other people deal with all that other stuff. So they have real estate advisors, but they're not your realtor. They're not your contractor. You still have to do all of your own permitting with the city and everything else. That's on you and your LLC. You all are sort of capturing that. So Smoothie King doesn't have to deal with that. Back to the example I was trying to make about like how Walmart, when a Walmart wants to build another store, that corporation has to find the permitting, the licensing, the leasing, building the space, and come up with it themselves. Whereas in the franchise model, Smoothie King doesn't have to deal with that at all. So they're just in the business of selling the model and providing the operational support for the most part. And they can advise on these other issues to some degree. There's some areas where they can't, they don't do your hiring or anything like that. So all the HR issues belong with you.
In regard to the Smoothie Kings all have a look.
Right.
I would think that they would have to stay with the model of the franchise and all that for them to, even though they're dealing with an independent contractor.
Sure.
They would still have to, I'm quite sure there's some blueprints or something. Are they provided from the?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
Okay.
So
No,
yes.
that's okay.
No, that's part of what they're providing in that blueprint. So we
Yeah.
talked a lot about the operations, like, how to bake the cupcakes, for example. But no, you have to tell them, well, these are our colors, and this is what the logo looks like, and this is what our bar looks like, and so forth. So there is a design team at Smoothie King, at Burger King, at Choice Hotels that will say, these are the colors that go in the hotel rooms. These are the linens. This is where we buy them from. Here are all the vendors you buy all of your things from. That's part of what the franchisor is also selling to you. They've taken the guesswork out of where you source your products and everything else. And they're going to tell you, if, when we find the space. So for example, with my first store, we got a space that's really long. It was their suggestion. They're like, well, let's maximize that back space and put a walk-in freezer in there. And here's the vendor that you can buy it from, and this is what it costs. So they helped me figure out how to make that space work with their trade dress, with their colors and everything else. So they tell me where to buy the styrofoam cups, the straws, the napkins, all that. I don't think about any of that.
You're very popular. There are a lot of questions that are coming through.
Well, that's good.
Um,
Whenever you give a presentation, you're like, is anybody listening? Is this going well? Okay.
So I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them, but
That's
let me
fine.
give you. So
Hit me with a few.
Yep. So we have one that says from Stephanie Johnson.
Mhm.
Are you considering taking lessons from Smoothie King to open more types of franchises?
Yes. So one of the things, so like I said earlier, franchising. Now I'm not taking anything from them. Like I'm not going to go open my own smoothie shop or anything like that. But no, yes, there are definitely operational learnings I've taken from this business model that now I feel better suited to take on a bigger franchise model, a hotel or something else. So yeah, it's definitely part of the growth plan.
And a personal question for me.
Yeah.
So I know that your husband is in construction,
Mhm.
so he has his own business as well.
Mhm.
Are there any lessons learned that you learned from the Smoothie King model that you said, honey, you should apply these in your business?
So interesting. My husband actually builds my stores, and but I do get other bids, which
Yep.
is a problem in our marriage. So whenever he creates a bid for me, right, to do a build out of the store, I will get bids from other contractors just to make sure he's keeping my price together. And I give
Love
that
it,
advice
love
to
it.
anybody. But sure, through the process of his company building franchises, obviously it's opened opportunity for him to do it for other brands and things like that. He sort of knows what that looks like, and dealing with the contractors that bring in like your equipment and so forth. So it's definitely been it's been a value add to his business as well.
Excellent. What is the royalty percentage that you have to pay the franchisor? And is it based on gross sales?
Yeah, so it's not based on gross sales. It's going to be a standard percentage, and Smoothie King is at 6%, and that doesn't include the marketing fees, which are like another 1%. But I'll tell people an average in the franchise world, and I mean, this is an average. I think a good number is right around 5 and 6%, between 6 and 8%. If anybody's taking more than that, unless they're making crazy money, I don't see how that makes sense. So, you know, sort of that's kind of like your sweet spot.
Excellent. And then last question, and I apologize to everyone online. I'm not going to have enough time. Okay, this is kind of a long one. If you have an established location for 3 years and the business is a franchise and customer base is solid, but rent is quite high, do you advise to move to another location to save on rent? That's the first part of the question. And then what's the best way to keep margins high considering the rent?
Okay, so there's a lot that's going to go into that calculation. You first, so you have to ask yourself a few questions. Are my sales really high because of that location? So my first store is a good example for so many reasons. It's actually right next to an LA Fitness. So, you know, that LA Fitness, of course, drives a lot of traffic. And so even if I wasn't terribly happy with the rent, I would have to know that I'm moving to a place where I would do that or better to save on the rent and then still sort of capture that. I wouldn't want to save on the rent and then now I don't have as many customers because now net you haven't really changed a whole lot. You're cheaper rent, but you got fewer customers. So I think that would be the analysis I would take to sort of answer that question first. You can always go to your landlord. I tell people in business, everything's negotiable. You know, you end up in, you know, everything's negotiable. You go back to your landlord and you say, hey, this is what I need, or this is what makes sense, and see what's available there. But if you're in not a great location and your rent is high, then absolutely I would look at moving. But if you're in a relationship with a franchisor, you would want to check your franchise agreement and talk to your franchisor about that, because there may be, you know, if you have to go dark, because you actually have to go dark to move into a new space. So, and, you know, most franchisor agreements don't let you go dark. You have to be open, you know, during the business hours they tell you to, you know, so you'd have to consider that. And you'd also have to consider the cost of sort of building this other space while you're operating this space, and the cost of the move and the time that you'll be down. And so, you know, once you work through that analysis, you might see if it makes sense. And if you're in a terrible location and you're moving to a much, much better location, it might be the cake might be worth the bake. But if not, you might want to just go to your landlord and say, hey, what can we do? Or maybe go to like a % rent or something like that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Dawkins. Obviously, an amazing presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So, just a couple of takeaways that I had, and I'm going to stop share real quick. Just a couple of takeaways that I had. Great presentation. Love to get the inside look of a franchise. She mentioned the 3,000 point audit that they do in her store. That takes 4 hours, and they come through to see, hey, is this right? Is this right? Just imagine if we all did a 3,000 point audit on our businesses to make sure that we're right, and how, you know, how formal, how well organized, how well put together what we have to do to make sure that our business, but check the box on all of those items. When we talk about these national, international brands, the level of detail that they put into their operations and their processes and what they do every day to make sure that it's repeatable and it's done the most effective and productive as possible, it takes that level of detail. So we need to keep that kind of mentality as we look at our businesses, as we, you know, our vision is to grow to be the next Smoothie King or what have you. So thank you again, Ms. Dawkins, for that presentation. And Ms. Dawkins, do you mind if I share your email in the chat? There were a few other people that had some questions, and I want to make sure that they get those to you. Okay. Oh, it's on the next slide. Okay. I'm sorry. I will. Yeah, no problem. So we'll share that. And right now we're going to take about a 5-minute break. Our next presenter should be here any moment. I haven't seen him yet. He should be here in a moment. And we will be back at 10 o'clock. We're at our halfway mark. So get some sugar, get a little break, and we'll see you here in just a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, let me get back over to that. No problem. There we go. Beautiful. All right, Mark, it's on you, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephen. Stephen and Sterling are awesome resources in the community, and I think they're doing many great things to help Fort Bend's developing business programs. And I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm passionate about mentoring and learning and giving back in the community. And I feel like this program is a great way to do that for the Fort Bend County businesses, especially those that are in this cohort and others who may get a chance to enjoy some of the content that are not part of the program. I'm gonna hop right in here. Today, we're gonna talk about C-level leadership development and training. Before we do that, a little quick note. Stephen introduced me. I've got a lot of years of experience out in the community in the healthcare, technology, and manufacturing area, as well as quite a bit of investing experience. I'm involved with several funds and startups and accelerators, and love giving back in an advisory capacity. And as Stephen mentioned, when I'm not out doing all those wonderful things, you'll find me out in the Texas region performing rock with a positive vibe. That's my band, Mojo, Mark Winter's band. You'll see me out and about. So hopping right in here, what are the things I think that sometimes can be confusing? You hear the term C-level executive or C-suite executive. That's a common way people refer to the topic that we're going to talk about today. And it sounds very mysterious if you've never known anyone in that role. We might be all familiar with maybe the chief executive officer, sort of thinking about that as the president or the leader of a company. But unless you've been involved in larger companies, you may not have really run into the term C-suite. So I'm going to spend just a minute talking a little bit about what a C-level executive is. It comes from, the C in it comes from the chief. It could be like in my house, I'm the chief bottle washer now. That's a title maybe. But the chief executive officer or sometimes the chief operating officer are common words that you might hear to describe a leadership function. And sometimes we think about these folks as the most powerful. I think of them as the most influential in the development of a company. And typically people who are in these C-level roles are making a lot of important decisions for the company. Strategic decisions, they might be making decisions that really affect the day-to-day operation. But more importantly, I think they're really helping to fulfill the company's strategic goals. You might also think that they are some of the higher paid folks in a company as well, because they're having all this impact in the company. And I think it's important, just sort of take a step back and think a little bit about, if you're a small or a medium-sized company, there's a typical title progression, and there's also a progression of responsibility that goes with that. So you might operate a company, let's say you're running, a series of restaurants, or perhaps an accounting firm, or maybe even a retail operation that might have some online or e-commerce activities. What are positions you might normally run into in your own company? And how does someone arrive at a C-suite, right? You might end up starting off with someone who's just coordinating an activity. They might end up being promoted to a supervisor where they're actually taking care of other people. A supervisor might morph into a manager over time, where they have more direct responsibility and they're making more of the day-to-day direction decisions. Someone might get promoted to a director. If you see someone with a director title, typically that person is fairly autonomous in a functional area, and they are really working on a lot of tactical execution items. So what are we doing this week? How are we going to manage our inventory? If we're managing multiple locations of an operation, how are we managing inventory across these operations? It's still more of an operational mindset in a function, whether it's accounting or operations or technology companies. That would be a typical in a director role. When you get to a VP person, a vice president role, you end up really thinking more about someone who's stepping into a leadership role, someone who can see beyond a few weeks. They perhaps are looking, months or quarters at an activity level. They might be the VP of sales for a function, for your operation. And they're thinking with a longer time horizon about the way in which the company's headed and achieving some goals, that are more, forecasted goals, and trying to direct the company more generally. When you step out of that vice president role into a C-suite, so if we're using a sales example, your chief sales officer or chief revenue officer, that person now is the person we're talking about today, right? So it's someone who's thinking about the strategic goals of the company. Where are we going, right? And how am I going to help the company get there in my functional area? If I'm the CEO, it might be the whole company, right? If I'm the chief financial officer, it might be the financial footprint of the company. How am I going to get us from here to there? If I'm the marketing officer, right, chief marketing officer, I might be thinking about how am I going to effectively help the company grow through branding and direct digital marketing or other strategic elements. How am I going to help that happen? And typically when you're in a C-level role, you're thinking about years, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, right? So your time horizon is really stretching out in the future. And to do that, you need a lot of skills, whether it's functional skills in the area that you're operating, or more general skills that most C-level executives have in their arsenal, right? Leadership is one, right? Very difficult for you to lead an endeavor over, to lead your marketing team or your finance team, or your sales team or your operational team. If you don't have good leadership to start with, you're not going to end up being able to get a full team to point in the direction they need to. And to do that, you need communication skills, right? As well as team building skills, because that's a critical area in how you achieve the long-term success in your functional area. So if you're the chief marketing officer and you're responsible for 15 marketing members, some of them doing branding, some of them doing digital artwork, some of them doing social media marketing, some of them doing print or TV marketing. You've got a lot of personalities to put together, and all that has to coalesce into a strategy that's going to get the company where it needs to go in the marketing function over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, right? So it's sort of the apex of your area you should think of as a C-level person. And I think the smaller your company, the less likely you are to have a C-suite person in a function, right? So we'll use marketing as an example. If you're a really tiny business, you have one store and it's a coffee shop, you probably don't have a chief marketing officer. The CEO might be functioning as the chief marketing officer. But as you get larger and maybe you end up with 20 coffee shops around the city of Houston, there's a certain way you want your marketing done, and you want it to be consistent across all of your operations, and you want it to allow you to promote your coffee shop with a certain feel and texture. And so, as you get larger, you'll start thinking more about a manager, a director, and eventually a C-suite person who can help you achieve those marketing goals and missions. So what is a C-level executive? It's somebody who really is owning a function, typically across a team, typically across a very long period of time, right? 3 to 5 years. Someone who's really going to move the needle or move the dial in fulfilling the company's strategic goals. So in my mind, that's sort of the C-level executive person. And the most frequent people you run into are the CEO, who's the chief executive officer who runs the company, the chief financial officer, right, who's in charge of accounting and finance and other financial functions, And typically, the next position I will see would be a chief technology officer or a chief revenue officer. And those would be sort of technology oriented or sales and revenue oriented folks. So, we mentioned some critical skills that are associated, or essential skills that are associated with those C-level executives. I think the most important thing in my mind, is the ability to think strategically. So, as I'm thinking about hiring a C-level executive, or I'm evaluating a company to make an investment, and I'm looking at the leadership in the company, right? In the key roles of the company, do I have people who have the ability to think strategically? That's a very important element. And without that, the other skills are far less important. You could be the greatest leader, you could have the greatest management capabilities and the greatest interpersonal skills, which are all very important, and every leader possesses those. But if you cannot strategically think and translate that into a plan, then you're likely not cut out to be a chief in your area, or you need to develop those skills, the skills of strategic thinking and translation into a plan, because those are extremely important in having someone in that role, right? I think another key component in this essential skill category, right, is the ability, to lead in a direction. So these are folks who are not taking direction necessarily, right? They might take input from their CEO, but they're definitely the ones thinking about how strategically to accomplish a task. And they're typically better than everyone else in the company at their function, right? And translating that function into strategy, into plans in their functional area. And around that, then you can imagine, right? If I have a great strategic plan, if I'm thinking that way, and I have the ability to rally my employees around this strategic vision, right? I'm likely to be very effective in accomplishing the goals that I'm laying out in my functional area. If I have the ability to rally my employees, that's important, but getting everybody fired up and they're not prepared to execute is a stumbling block that you have to overcome as well. And so, really to be effective as a C-suite person, you really need to know how to prepare the teams that you're running so that they're ready in their functional areas to execute. And that will really help, translate the strategy and the plan into action in these functional areas. Sometimes you need the ability to persuade and influence other people who are colleagues of yours, sometimes direct reports and managers, to see the vision that you have for your area and to help you do some of the things that you might need done in accomplishing your strategic vision or plan. So if I'm the chief marketing officer for this coffee shop, and we've got our 20 coffee shops around the city of Houston, and I want to have a certain type of a program where we're doing a giveaway at the cash register or playing certain music to create a mood, and there are certain things I want the barista to say, I need lots of people to work with me, right? Because these people don't report to me. So the ability to persuade, influence, and inspire the operations people or the finance people, become very important in my role as the chief marketing officer, right? So that's an important skill as well. I think sometimes things don't go like we want in the plan that we've created. So we've all played with. Maybe we've all played Monopoly with people who are good sports and bad sports. your C-suite person needs to have grace under fire, right? They need to be able to guide the department, even when things aren't really going the way that we want them to, like COVID is affecting everyone and we're all challenged, right? We need someone who has grace under fire and the ability to manage that department through changes while we're minimizing the downside, right? Like we all had to live with in COVID and are currently having to relive with to a degree with Delta coming through. I wouldn't be a very effective marketing person if I didn't have great marketing expertise. And this is an area that I find a lot of people, sort of struggle with as they're first in a C-suite role. They feel like they need to know everything better than everyone else, right? So I might feel like I need to be better, if I'm using my marketing example, I might need to be better than anyone else making branded content, right? I need to draw better than everyone else. I need to create slogans better than everyone else. I need to be the best digital marketer, right? I need to know how TV ads work, right? Well, you don't need to be the best at everything, right? You do need to have great functional expertise, and you need the ability to understand the components that you're managing. But you do not need to be an expert better than everyone else in all of those areas, right? You do need to understand them well enough such that you can help fit them into your strategic vision, right? But you will be hiring other people who are better at you in certain functional areas. Now, the smaller you get, sometimes you do need to be a functional expert in lots of areas. So, many of the startups I work with, they might have a staff of 4 people, and everyone's sort of pitching in, doing everything. And someone might have the title in a digital startup of chief marketing officer, right? Because it's a digital company and they're running, an online brand, and they really need to be good at that. That's a very strong functional success area for the company. So they do need to be an expert in those areas, but it's kind of a race, right? They're racing to get the company big enough so that they can hire people who are better than they are at it, right? I hand those duties off, and then they can flip into this more leadership oriented role, right? Which gets to, I'm not sure what bullet number that is. It's like bullet number 10, effective delegation, right? At some point, your company gets to a size where you need to be able to hand a task off to another person. And this is one of those critical skills. I would say thinking strategically is number 1, and translating strategy into plan, is number 2, and effective delegation in my mind is number 3, right? So can you identify a task and effectively delegate it? And we'll talk about that a little more later in the presentation, but that's a very key skill. And then, are you able to identify metrics in your functional area that help you understand the progress in the area? If you were the chief operating officer for Stephen and Sterling's staffing business, and they had 9 locations, and you wanted to be keeping tabs on things, I would think Stephen would want to know, fairly regularly, are we hitting our numbers? Are we hitting our, staffing counts, etc.? If I'm running my barista, how many cups of coffee am I selling every day? What's my margin on those cups of coffee? Are my customers coming back and visiting me, right? These are all operational metrics, and your chief operating officer would have their finger on the pulse of those things to make sure that they're aware of shifts and changes in the business that need to be managed, right, or optimized in some way. So effectively creating a dashboard or a set of metrics as you get larger becomes a very important skill as well, and really helps propel your company from what will be a small company into a mid-sized company. That's a key area that I see develop in companies. But your C-suite person, if you're a marketer, an operations person, or a financial person, you'll have a set of metrics that you'll keep track of. And those are things that tell you if the company is achieving its strategy and its tactics, right, in your functional area. And then, you know, we've talked a bit about interfacing with, you know, your employees and also with peers in your organization. I think that's important. And I would say, you know, at the top of my, you know, list of 4 would be the ability to be a part of the corporate culture and sharing that with others. So can you think strategically? Can you translate strategy into plan? Can you effectively delegate? And are you one of the advocates for your corporate culture, right? You know, if you're doing those things, then I think you have the skills to be a C-level person in your functional area. And I think you're very successful. If you're interviewing or thinking about promoting someone into these roles, then I think these are great questions to ask yourself that are softer skills, right? They're not, do you have a functional expertise in your area, right? Are you a CPA? Can you do the books? Okay, that's great. That's a functional task. That's a manager or staff level task. When you're talking about someone who's a C-suite level person, right? Do you have some of these other softer skills, right? Are you a pillar of culture in the company? Do you think strategically, right? Do you translate your strategy into plan? And do you have metrics? Do you effectively delegate? These are all things that would sort of make me start thinking about promoting someone into a C-suite role if they were in, you know, a VP or a director or a manager role at this point in time in their career. Which leads me to sort of, you know, the next consideration. So, you know, let's say you've got a person and maybe they're a general manager today, or maybe maybe you've got a person who's a director in your company, and you're really thinking about, you know, or maybe there's someone from the outside that you're thinking about hiring, and you're wondering, you know, they're asking you for one of these types of titles, right? And we have a question, I think Mrs. KAIR Project asked a question, can this approach be used in the capacity of building a not-profit? Definitely, I think these are universal skills. So if you're a not-for-profit, you're going to have a marketing function. If you're a for-profit, you're going to have a marketing function, right? In a not-for-profit, you know, instead of a chief revenue officer or chief sales officer, you know, you might have a chief donor officer, right? Who's responsible for bringing revenue into your not-for-profit, right? But the same function or the same skill set for the chief of that area would apply, right? You know, I think that's, you know, that's universally something I see across not-for-profits, for-profits, and small and mid-sized businesses. We had a question also that came in, you know, if you have a one-employee business, you know, what's a good title? I think, you know, founder, owner, proprietor, president, all those are fine. It's sort of a personal choice for you. I don't think you need any other titles outside of that. As your company starts growing and you're thinking about C-suite, you know, these are sort of, you know, when it's beyond just you, right? So I'm a one-man shop right now. I'm the president. Next year, I hire 2 or 3 more people. I'm thinking about, okay, what do I call those people? You know, one of them is a person who's really good at sales. Do I bring them in as a sales manager, a sales director, a sales VP, or a chief? You know, this would be a framework to help you think about, is this person a chief or not, right? So talking a little bit about, you know, how to tell if someone's ready or not. You know, to me, there's the first question I always ask myself is sort of push or pull, right? Am I pushing the person at the job? So I'm telling, I'm looking at hiring, Frank into my business. He's really good at sales. And so am I telling Frank, hey, this is a chief sales officer position, right? If I'm pushing it at him, that's different than if he's trying to take it from me. Maybe I've got a person who's running my coffee shop chain, and they're in charge of running around and hiring the managers for each location. They're in charge of the supply chain. They're in charge of HR. They're doing their thing. They're doing a great job. And that person's title is manager. Well, and maybe the person that they're hiring into the coffee shop to run the coffee shop's name, that's their title is manager too. That person who's running around may not care what their title is. They're just enjoying their job. Okay. And that's fine. Maybe it's really important to them that they get a job called director or chief of operations, right? Or a regional president or something like that. So if the person's seeking it from me, that's different than if I'm pushing the title on them. Okay. And this is a great framework to figure out, the first question, do they have the skill to do the job? Right. And then, there's another set of skills we'll talk about, what does the company need in the form of a role, right? So why should we have a title that says a thing? So let's talk through a few of these, how to assess someone to tell whether they're ready or not. And one of the questions came in from Tazeen: for a small community theater company, to delegate responsibility is very risky. I'm so worried about everything and feel that the rest of the crew is less invested in the project. Super great question, Tazeen. We'll get to delegation here in a second. I think that's number 5 on our list, so stay tuned and we'll get right to that one. Okay. Has the candidate challenged themselves sufficiently, right? So it's really not about how long they've been in a position, right? So, wow, Frank's been in this role for 25 years. It's about time I made him, my chief operations officer. That's not it. It's not, that this person, has jumped around and, had lots of different roles in the company, right? It's really not about any of that. It's really, does that person have the skills that we're talking about, right? And, one of those skills is challenging themselves to get better, right? So am I actively developing skills, right? Myself, maybe I'm working in a company, maybe I'm a director, and I really want to make my way up to, the chief financial officer in a company, and I'm the director of finance right now. Okay, am I challenging myself or not? Am I developing skills, or am I just sort of doing a good job and saying, oh, well, the company owes me this promotion in the future, right? Well, that's a terrible motive, right? My motive should be to keep making myself better, right? To keep challenging myself with unfamiliar territory. When special projects come up that are outside of my area, am I going above and beyond what's required to learn and make myself more effective, right? So if you're that person's manager, you're assessing, hey, are they challenging themselves, and are they trying to make themselves better? That's the number one, are they motivated to move up and make themselves better, right? The second area in evaluation, right, is, am I self-aware? Do I really know what my skills are, right? What are the skills of an effective chief marketing officer. Maybe I just think of it as a title, right? Have I, identified, somebody who's already in that role and looked at what their skills are? Have I gone to school to learn some of those things? Have I taken online classes? Am I a part of an association, right? Am I really aware of my skills and what are my skill gaps are and what I need to be doing to make those improvements, right? So if I see a person and I'm thinking of promoting them, or I'm thinking of hiring them from the outside into a C-suite position, right? If they're not actively aware of things they need to work on and actively pursuing education and experience to supplement those skills, then I'm typically less, likely to feel that they're ready for this type of a position, right? So just being self-aware and continuing to work on your skill gaps is an important trait for someone who you're thinking about moving into one of these roles, or for yourself if you want to move yourself into one of these roles. Another area of assessment for people that you're thinking about taking into these positions, do people accept personal responsibility, right? You guys probably have met plenty of folks, right? Something happens, maybe an angry customer comes in and the situation gets out of control and the business is damaged in some way, bad review, damaged property, etc. Right? Boy, there's people who it really bothers, and really will come to you after an event like that and say, "Man, I'm so sorry that this happened." Maybe you're the owner of the business. What do you think I could have done better to keep this from happening? That's a great attitude. That person is trying to make themselves better. They care about the business. They're invested, right? They're taking personal responsibility, right? And then we've met other people who say, wow, that was a crazy customer. I guess they won't be coming back again, right? Or, wow, that was a big account. And my coffee company, right, had this giant corporate account that we were doing catering for. And now, we lost that account. Well, that manager, the person who was hiring us to do that was crazy anyway, right? So, I guess we don't have to worry about them anymore. Well, that's a terrible attitude. I mean, maybe the person was crazy, right? But the attitude of the person who's coming to you with the responsibility of that account should be, how can we, change the game, make it better? Am I accepting personal responsibility for my area and trying to make it better, right? I think owning the successes and the failures, right, really shows you someone who's ready for a more senior level role, like a C-suite person. We talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago. Item number 4, right? If you're trying to make yourself better, that usually means that you're aware of best practices in your industry. So if you're the, if you're the barista or your chief barista officer for your coffee shop, right? Hey, are you out in the industry? Do you go out and participate in coffee tastings, right? Are you a blogger on someone's, news feed about coffee, right? Is there a trade show or a convention or an online group or a Facebook group or whatever where other baristas are talking about how they blend their coffee and how they make it better and how they make it more signature, right? If you're a chief financial officer, right, or you want to be, right? Are you a member of the CFO Society, or are you aware? Do you get a publication, right? Do you follow someone on TikTok, right? What do you do? How do you stay in touch with your industry? And how do you network? And how do you make sure that you're aware of best practices in your functional area and make that a part of making yourself better. That's a key role in this self-development, okay? So professional accountability, owning an area, and really making sure that you're outside, making yourself better, right? Let's talk a little bit, about Tazine's question here. Delegation. Oh, that's a scary word, right? Especially if you're a small business emerging into a mid-sized business, or a mid-sized business where you're a super doer, right? You're a super doer. Like, I'm really good at doing a lot of things and I work really hard. These are all great traits of an entrepreneur, right? At some point in time, you become the limiting factor of the growth of your business because you're a super doer. You do everything great. You care more than everybody else. So why should I give it to anyone else? Get to Tazine's point, right? Hey, I care about it more than everybody else, right? Well, at some point in time, you should be assessing, here are things that are being done in the company, and what is the limiting factor of the company? And if I look at the limiting factors and I'm looking in the mirror and that's me, right? I'm harming the business. Yes, I'm doing it all well, but I'm not really doing a good job of letting the business grow because I haven't learned how to delegate, okay? Which leads me to sort of, what are key delegation skills? And we won't really spend a ton of time in this, but to me, delegation is all about, okay, what's the task? Okay, well, you know what? I can't run the cash register in 20 coffee shops. I just can't do it. If I'm running the cash register, I'm better than everybody else, but I just can't do it. Okay, so I'm the problem. So, all right, so I need to delegate. I got to figure out, okay, who do I delegate it to? Right, that's the first question. And then, hey, what's their interest level or desire or competency, right? Does this person even want to run the cash register or not? And if they don't, how do I find somebody who does? Because if you're pushing a task at a disinterested party, you're not going to delegate it very well, right? You're going to sort of partially delegate it, which is terrible. So find someone who's interested and has the competency to do it, right? And then how am I going to keep tabs of it, right? What is the thing? You're running the cash register. Got it. What does that mean? Opening, closing, counting, making change, running credit cards. Got it. What are my KPIs, right? How do I know if the job's being done? Well, I've got a set of things. I know money in, I know money out. I know how the cash register is supposed to ring. I've got my little spreadsheet of stuff that I think I'm supposed to watch. So, I kind of know how I'm going to watch it now. And now I can, trust yet verify, right? I gave you a job, you're running the cash register at the end of every shift. I can see the shift change. I've got a variance report. I can trust and verify, and I'm all good, right? And then the last part, which I think is the most frequently omitted part of a good delegation strategy, is giving the person credit for doing a good job, right? Hey, you ran their cash register, awesome. 2 thumbs up. I saw it on my KPIs. I trust you. You're rocking it. Keep rocking. You're doing better than I did, right? Or, hey, you know what? You're not doing so well. Let's correct and move forward. If it was a task or a job or a project, right? Once it's finished, we complete it and move on. So effective delegation is a skill. If you don't know how to do it, there's lots of great training materials on how to do it, and it takes practice and skill. And I think it's something that over time you develop a good feeling for. But if I'm looking for a chief marketing officer, chief revenue officer, chief operations officer, I need someone who's got this delegation skill. Okay, and then we have a question that came in. Let's see. Tisha asked about contractors, right? So to me, when I'm looking at hiring contractors or employees, I don't really have any difference in my assessment of delegation. Titles, yes. Trish, a contractor likely won't have one of these chief titles, but the delegation skill that you'll be using with a contractor will follow the same framework. You might have slightly different checks and balances in your KPI and trust yet verify segments, but it will work exactly the same way when you're working at delegation. And then there was a question that came in from Jaspal about legal responsibilities, maybe malpractice or fraud for top executives. Do they differ? Most certainly they do. The job description in a larger company might have more authority in it. Did I give people responsibility and authority in certain areas? Potentially there's regulatory considerations for a chief level person. If you can imagine, if you're the chief medical officer for a hospital, there's some regulatory elements that go with that are different than if you were the chief sales officer for a software company, right? So some of the chief titles come with a regulatory layer that you're delegating to that person to fulfill. And so malpractice and fraud, if you're the chief financial officer, as an example, the level of legal responsibility is different in financial services, as an example, around things like fraud. So definitely depends on the size of the company, Jaspal, as well as the functional role we're talking about delegating to. Okay. So let's pretend that you're on a mission and you want to become a chief in a company. We're going to go through these steps here, sort of a pathway to getting your skills in order and your opportunities in order. First step, we talked a little bit about education. This particular example might be related to someone who's looking for a chief executive officer role. Get an MBA. I say get leadership, get education in your functional area. If you want to be the chief financial officer and you're not a CPA or a CFA, then likely you didn't pay attention to the skills that are most likely to be required in your functional area. If you want to be the chief medical officer of a hospital and you're not a physician, likely not good qualification. So get an educational background in your functional area that is relevant to the type of position that you're trying to obtain. Gain industry and management experience in that area, right? So you might find that you want to be a chief marketing officer, and you're like, wow, I'm working for this small company right now. I'm never going to be a chief marketing officer, right? They don't even need one. Well, you can find other people who are in roles with companies that you admire and feel like would make a good destination for yourself as a potential CMO. Learn about their education and the path that they took there. Look at those folks potentially as mentors. We'll talk about that in a minute, right? If you are in a company and there is a chief marketing officer available in the company or chief financial officer in the company that you are working in, then make sure that you're doing all the skill things we've talked about, as well as starting to craft your own vision for corporate success for your company. What are things you feel like the company should be doing that they're not doing? And how can we help incorporate your vision into that set? Take a lead, right? When company change is happening, number 3 on the list, right? Where there's change, there's opportunity. That's one of my favorite things. I love market chaos. I love change. I love when the board's being rewritten. It's a great time to be flexible and nimble and reposition yourself so that you can learn critical skills and you can take the company in critical directions to help the company and earn a C-suite promotion, and sometimes in the process. Offer, consultative help. Lots of opportunity out and about to donate your time, to donate your skills. Many times, to get back to the not-for-profit, question earlier, not-for-profits have lots of need and they have no money or little money to pay for things. If you want to be the chief financial officer someday and you volunteer yourself to be the finance person for a not-for-profit and you're not making any money doing it, that's okay. You're developing a skill, right? And from that skill base, then opportunity starts to spring because you've got experience doing it. You're helping a company that really needs it, a not-for-profit potentially, and it's really helping you build the skills that you would need to become successful in the role that you want, in the C-suite role you want. You could become a board member. That's another opportunity, whether it's on your church board or your community center board, or potentially your community service board or your homeowners board, right? Lots of board opportunities that are not paid, but give you experience in developing some of the social skills and peer skills that would help you become a C-suite person. I work in several incubators and accelerators. Number 6, start as an entrepreneur. If you have the entrepreneurial spirit, get out. Either if you want to start your own company, that's cool. If you want to be involved with a startup, most of the time those guys don't have much money, but they're always happy to have an extra hand at the table. Maybe you love social media and digital marketing, and so you get involved and on the kind of your side hustle is to help this widget sales company with their internet strategy, and over time you develop a lot of great skills just being involved with earlier stage companies. It's a great way to learn and also to help others in the process. Find a mentor, probably my favorite of the list. If you are serious about taking a journey to being a CEO or taking a journey to being a CMO or a CFO, right? Find a mentor, someone who's had that job, been there and done that. Work with that person, get them to be honest with you, right? We don't want someone who's just going to tell us, wow, we're great, we're special, and we deserve something. We don't want that. We want someone who's going to say, look, here's the 9 skills you need, and I'm telling you, you don't have them right now. Go find a place to get them, right? And someone who will encourage you and challenge you, give you the feedback. Someone who shares some of your cultural values is usually a good place to start to find that mentor. And it's not necessarily a mentor. Most successful people that I know have many mentors in their life, personal and professional, that really help them become the person that they are as they're succeeding. And then, hey, pay attention. Number 8, what do you look like on paper, right? If you look at your LinkedIn and your LinkedIn looks like a one-liner and you're applying for a job as a CFO, you're not doing yourself any favor. Pay attention to what it looks like on your LinkedIn. If you're going to hire somebody into a chief role, look at their LinkedIn, right? And don't even think about, if anyone tells you, hey, I don't do LinkedIn. Wow, okay. That's okay, but not likely a person that's going to help you grow for the next 10 years, right? That's where the world is right now. It's on digital, right? You need to have these digital profiles. You can do as many of these items or as little as you like, whether it's blogging or publications, etc. But the key, I think, is to make sure that you're aware and you have a LinkedIn profile. Lastly, I would say, take some classes. There's plenty of classes out, free and otherwise, on a variety of social media and on the internet. Take a class, take some interest in your own personal development. Chief Marketing Officer programs are listed here, or C-suite growth programs. Lots of great programs inside the Fort Bend County Accelerator program that Stephen and Sterling are working with you today on, that can really help you develop, many of those skills. I'm going to pause here for any other remaining questions. as well as to share contact information in case you need to reach Stephen or myself after this. If you have any additional questions, I'm always happy to take those. A few questions from chat. Let's see. Do you advise to have paid mentorship? So Terrence asks. So, to me, Terrence, you sort of find those mentors in the areas of your life that make the most impact on you. If you go to a church, many times you can find a mentor in your church that might be a professional mentor or a life mentor. If you get involved in a not-for-profit, many times you can find a mentor in not-for-profit that may not cost you anything, but you get to spend some great time with them. You might even enjoy being a mentor. Big brothers, big sisters, might be a way in which you can mentor and give back yourself. So Terrence, if there's a specific area that you want to develop, I would say paid mentorship is a great choice. I usually recommend that for people who are going into a larger role. So let's say you want to become the CFO for a mid-sized company, maybe a $50 million company or a $100 million company, and you're not right now working in a $5 million company, right? I would say, when you get to the big leagues, right, to these mid-size, lower mid-size and upper size companies, you definitely need a coach, and you need a coach who's been there and done that. And usually that means paid coaching. It's a bit different than mentorship, okay? But I definitely recommend investing in yourself in those areas. And there's plenty of them, and they don't have to break the bank, but definitely, it's something that you should do. Let's see, we have another question here. Maybe this is the last one, Stephen.
No problem.
As an owner of a home infusion pharmacy, and it's challenging to find mentorship in that area, any suggestion? Terrence, the American Society of Health System Pharmacists is a pretty large pharmacy organization. It's pretty low dues, and they have several subcommittees that are home infusion oriented. You can find great pharmacists and business mentors in those areas, that sort of functional areas. Outside of that, I think you can also find some local coaching. I think Stephen and Sterling even have some local coaches who are part of the program who can get you started in a great mentorship role. So I think I think a great place to start might be to reach out to Stephen and let Stephen know that you're looking for coaching in certain areas or mentors in certain areas. And I think they have a great network of folks who can help you here in the county.
Yeah. Great job, Mark. I'm sorry. Oh, there's one other question here, and I have a question for you too, Mark. So hold on. Go ahead.
Yep. Let's see. Tazeen had a question online. Do we have one in person too, Stephen?
Yeah, just me. I've got a couple for you.
Okay. Let me get Stephen. Let me get Tazeen real quick.
Okay.
I wish I could get a mentor in theater making. I think Tazeen, I would definitely suggest that you look online. There's a host of people, and I might look to the theater schools as my starting block for that, to find great, either if it's musical theater or other types of theater, find those schools that offer the premier programs. There's usually an alumni association for those, and usually you can find yourself a great mentor if you sort of start at the academic institution level and work your way down from that.
Nice.
Stephen, I think that was the last of the questions from chat.
Great job. Thank you so much, Mark. I've got a couple of questions for you. One would be, I know that there are, and I know you're aware of this as well, the ability to actually outsource your C-level positions to more experienced people, and you outsource it from a consultant perspective. So you may have a CFO that's actually, he has been a CFO for other companies before, and he asks your CFO to, commits a certain number of hours per month or whatever to serve in that role. But someone who's very, very talented and experienced, it doesn't take a lot to really serve in that role. What would be your recommendation in terms of when to outsource a role, and actually really when to decide it's time for me to step away as the owner slash CEO slash wearer of all hats and doing it all, to bring on a talented MBA kind of level guy to come in and serve as CEO of the company?
Yeah, so two questions. One, I'm going to use the term fractional.
Yes.
Right. So when you're out in the market and you're having a problem with an area, and I'm going to call it a strategic problem. Okay. So we'll talk about the fractional CFO as just a good example, right? So I've got a company and I'm running my 20 coffee shops, and I want to merchandise, I want to open 20 more coffee shops. I got a music channel I run. I got all these things I want to do. My entrepreneur brain is blowing up. I'm ready to go. And I go and talk with my controller, which is a typical level position you might see. That's maybe the person running your accounting and finance department, right? It's kind of a mid-level accounting and financial professional. And you go and you share all the stuff with that person, right? And their head blows up and they're like, oh, wait. Where are we going to get all the money for that? Hold on, right? And so then you feel frustrated. You're like, man, I'm ready to go and I just don't have the juice, right? That's the point that you should think about a fractional CFO, right? Because a fractional CFO is not worried about the day-to-day. They're not worried about the balancing the books and payroll and all these other crazy ideas you come up with, right? That fractional CFO has talked to hundreds of CEOs just like you, Stephen. They say, hey, you know what? What do you want to do? All right, let me put all that in a framework for you. Let's see how much money that takes. Let's see where we can go and get that money to make that work, and where we can adjust your operations to allow cash flows from the operation to fund part of it. And here's a plan, right? That fractional CFO, may have just created a ton of value for you. And they work on a fractional basis, like an hourly basis, right? So you say, well, we're going to have kind of like a board meeting with a fractional CFO once a month or every other week. And we're going to build a model up for this. And they're going to help me with this part, right? And they may even become a part of your normal board environment as a fractional person, right? And there's plenty of fractional CFO services out there. If you're having problems with digital marketing, fractional CMO is another area that's a good area. If you have any digital marketing that you're doing as a company, it's a super awesome area. One of the first areas I recommend that you think about a fractional resource. So fractional CMO, fractional CFO, those are the typical firsts that I think of. And to your last question, a CEO at some point in time, a good friend of mine, Bill, I'll give Bill Mack. You guys don't know Bill Mack, but I know him from the area out here. He's a part of my mentor network, and he always tells me, okay, Mark, do you want to be the king, or do you want to make a lot of money? Right? If you want to be the king, right, then you can run your company and you walk in every day and everybody's like, hey, Mark, you're great. Everything's awesome. We're all doing great. Okay. Or no, we've got this great company and it's doing its thing. And let's pretend I don't have the CEO skills to run it. Okay. I've got all the ideas. I've got tons of connections. The environment's right, but I don't have the skill, right? If I went back through all this slide deck and I looked at all the skills that I needed and I assess myself and I go, wow, I'm terrible at all that, right? I'm a great entrepreneur, but when it gets to be a large scale business, I have none of those skills, right? Well, that's the time to say, okay, this is now a company I'm going to own, right? But I'm really going to start thinking through how to hire a hired gun, an outside CEO, right, to come in and step in and take the reins and move it. And usually the company needs to have some level of revenue right in front of it, that it would be interesting for a CEO, to step in and operate and that you can afford it. So those are two scenarios of many. Stephen, hopefully I answered your question.
You did, and Mark, I appreciate that. And I think we have a number of different levels of businesses in terms of where they are in the maturity level. And there are some businesses that are probably a little bit further along, and they're trying to make that decision. At some point, you're going to realize that maybe your business has outgrown your skill set. That's not a problem. We don't want to be the smartest person in the room. We want to be around people that are smarter than us, right? So at some point, we will have to make that decision and say, I need to bring in some outside help, some hired guns, whatever the case may be, that come in and will help us take our business to the next level. And you see these big guys do it. You see the Michael Dells. I mean, everyone has gone through a phase of growing their business to a certain point, and then having to turn it over to someone who had a better skill set, something a little different, to take them to the next level. Mark, your expertise and your insight is of course always on point. We appreciate your time. I know you're a very, very busy guy, so thank you so much for your input.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. So we're going to run right into LaMonica because we ran over just a little bit. And LaMonica, I apologize that we took away a little bit of your time. I'm going to remove the spotlight from you, Mark, and hand this over to Miss LaMonica. And you guys online and also here in the room, if you need to take a break, and just run out, take a break, and we're just going to keep going because we've just got. We're in the fourth quarter with Miss LaMonica to take over for us. How are you, lovely? How are you, Miss Love?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited about sharing this information with the business owners of Fort Bend County, and this is an amazing program.
Absolutely, and we are equally amazed to have you on the panel. Miss Love is a very successful attorney in the Houston area. She served in a number of different boards, a number of different organizations. She is just a superstar in the community. I think just recently, top 40 under 40, if I remember correctly, was one of the awards that you received.
Yes, thank you. Yes, from the Houston Business Journal.
Superstar. So we're happy to have her on the team and to help us talk a little bit about trademarks, patents, copyrights, the legal part of what we're doing. A lot of you guys obviously probably already have a setup in terms of sole proprietor or LLC and or S Corp, but we're going to talk a little bit more about how do you protect your intellectual property. So LaMonica, the stage is yours.
So I'll just get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and start to share my screen so that we can talk about how to protect and grow your business, which is really what is one of the most important things that you're going to have to do, creating that sort of baseline of what it means to have your business. So give me a moment and I'm going to share my screen.
I want to make sure that it wasn't messing up on my side. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I can share it. Okay, can you guys see the screen fine? Okay, great. So this is just about me. I'm the founder of the Love Law Group and Consulting Services company. I work with startups. I work with small to medium-sized businesses and Fortune 100 companies. I consider myself to be expert in law and business development. So one of the things that I want to do is to get to know your business, work with all of the things we heard from lots of other entrepreneurs that talk to you about what you need to do to grow your business, to grow your mindset, to grow your skills. Well, all of those things are going to work together with how you're going to function with what you're doing from a legal point of view. So the first thing we're going to talk about is corporations and LLCs. What's the difference? I'm going to just give a very quick overview of what I believe the difference is. So for a corporation, that's going to be a preference for startups that raise capital. So if you're going to be issuing stocks, or you want to be sure that you have what's called sort of a multi-level management level. So you have officers, you have directors, you have managers, so a board of directors. This is going to be a really good setup for you. So that means, are there going to be individuals that maybe have ownership in your company, but they don't necessarily participate in the everyday management? A corporation is going to be a really good setup for your company. So what are the disadvantages of a corporation? I would say that they are a little bit more complicated when you think about how you want to handle your taxation issues, the formalities of filing it. If you decide that you want to become a minority certified business, or to focus on maybe selling your business, you're going to be sure that you are keeping up with all of the documentation. So that's going to include business resolutions, your bylaws, how much, if you want to take out a loan, if you want to, a lot of you probably saw this when you got ready to get SBA loans or to get EIDL loans. The SBA required that you had a business resolution from your board members, from your manager, stating that that they approved you taking out that loan. Well, if you have a corporation, those are the types of documents that you should be keeping internally, because if you ever sell your business, if you ever merge with another business, those are the types of due diligence that I have my clients really look for in those cases. Next would be an LLC. LLC is really what we see most often. I think it's considered sort of the go-to business structure for most companies right now. It has flexible ownership. Many of the owners share in what they can do. You can bring on individuals. You can issue more membership interest if you decide to take on a new manager. The disadvantage of that is that if you are trying to raise capital, that's pretty difficult. Most of the time, if you're a startup and someone is investing in your company, you cannot have an LLC as a legal entity, and it also does not allow you to issue stock. So this is something that I like to present to my to clients when I talk to them, because I think that in this day and age, so many times we see, what people see, and I call it the glacier approach. The average glacier might be about 1 story tall, but underneath it, it takes about 5 stories to really hold that glacier in place. So when we look at businesses today, we see, they have blue checks on social media. They're getting lots of likes and comments. We see entrepreneurs taking lots of trips and doing, #no-sleep, or having lots of wonderful events. But what we don't see is expertise, which Mark talked about. We don't see the business strategy behind that. All of the to-do lists, the relationships that you have to form to make your business successful. And from a legal point of view, we don't necessarily see your trademarks, which are going to protect your intellectual property, and the agreements that you have in place. I'm not going to talk a lot about legal agreements today, but I think that those are also so important, because those are going to be the foundation of your business. And, I oftentimes say that having a lawyer isn't like the sexy part of business. You don't want to necessarily post your lawyer on social media or post that you saw your lawyer, because it's not all the time sort of associated with something that is positive. But those are the relationships that you want to build underneath the layer. And I saw that someone posted, do nonprofits have a choice in the type of business structures that they select? No. If you want to become a 1023, or if you want to become a 501c3 or a 501c4, that would be a nonprofit entity in the state of in any state. and then you would go through the federal government and get your 501c3 status or your tax status. So my recommendation to anyone who would want to set up a nonprofit would be to set up a Texas nonprofit. What you want to be very sure of, though, is that when you set up your Texas nonprofit, you list a reason that's in line with a 501c4, 501c6, whatever status that you're seeking to claim. You want to be sure that you include that in your incorporation documents. Okay. So the next slide is limited liability, talking about LLCs and corporations. So when you set up your limited liability corporation, company, or your corporation, what that's going to do is to really sort of set up a wall between you as the owners and the business. So that's going to ensure that when you enter into contracts, when you enter into your lease, that you're entering into a contract in the name of your company. So this means that your business is going to be the only thing that's going to be liable. Now, as an entrepreneur, we do know that sometimes there are personal guarantees or there are other things that involve you as an individual, but generally when it comes to being sued, having any, establishing your credit, it's going to be in the name of your entity. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about is when you establish your business name through the Secretary of State, does that mean that your business name is protected? So that's going to be a tricky question. It's a yes and a no. What it does mean is that you are protected in the sense from your liability, but it does not mean that your brand is going to be protected from other individuals opening a company or engaging in activity that is similar to yours. So one thing that we need to realize is that we live in a global economy. And so now we live in a global economy where everyone that we're finding is on Yelp, is on Facebook, is on Google. And so protecting your brand is going to go a little bit more outside of just outside of what you're searching. Okay, I see that I have a question between what is the difference between an LLC and a PLLC. A PLLC is a professional limited liability company, and that's going to be offered to individuals who engage in something that requires a professional license. So if you're an attorney, if you are a medical professional, if you are, we've seen veterinarians, anything that requires some type of certification. The distinction between a PLLC and an LLC is that every individual who is considered an owner of the LLC has to have that professional certification. So let's say if I were to go into business with an owner or an individual who is not also a lawyer, I could not start a PLLC because they would have to also be a lawyer for us to co-own that together. We would both have to have that certification. Okay, so a business tip is that if you start your business in one legal entity, you can convert it to another structure. So a lot of times I have individuals who started their business as an LLC and now they want to go into a startup round. They want to raise funds. They're getting ready to go into seed rounds, and we have to convert their business to a corporation. That's something that is very simple. We'll have to make sure that all of your paperwork is in order, but you could also do that in the state of Delaware if that's something that you wanted to do as well. So now let's talk about trademarks and trade names. What is the difference between a trademark and a trade name? Really, a trademark is a way for clients, consumers to ensure that they can distinguish your good or service from someone else. So one of the examples here is that when we're talking about buying automobiles, we might see Chevrolet, we might see General Motors, Toyota, Lexus. When you think about Lexus, you think about Chevrolet, those names alone do not have any types of identifiers that would make us to believe that we're talking about cars. But the way that they have established their brand, the way that they use their logos, their marketing, all of that now has become so identifiable in the market that when you hear Chevrolet, when you hear Toyota, you automatically think about cars. And the way that they've done that is through establishing their trademark. So what are the ways that you can establish your trademark? There's federal trademarks, there are state trademarks, and then there's through common law. Federal trademarks are going to be the strongest way for you to establish your mark. State trademarks, in my opinion, are becoming a bit obsolete. And common law is something that is going to become important as we see over 5,000 trademarks being filed every day with the USPTO. So let's sort of get into what it means with all of these trademarks. The first thing that we're going to talk about is federal trademarks. And this is what I would encourage all of you guys to do as business owners, as nonprofit individuals engaging with nonprofits, to ensure that your mark is owned on the Federal Register. So let's talk about what the Federal Register is. To file a federal trademark, you're going to be filing that with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Once you file with the United States Patent Trademark Office, there's two registries. There's the principal registry and there's the supplementary registry. So what are the benefits of this registry? You get to use your trademark nationwide. You also have the right to file an injunction against someone who is using your mark. You can file for monetary damages, and you can prohibit importation. So while the USPTO establishes the most protection, filing a trademark, especially in this day and age, is really the most complicated. As I said earlier, there are over 5,000 trademarks being filed every single day. So understanding how to research your trademark, understanding how to use your trademark correctly and file your application correctly is going to be of the most importance. So what are the signs of a good trademark? The signs of a good trademark is that they're distinctive, so they're not descriptive or having a secondary meaning. So what does that mean? One of the examples that I like to use is like Peloton, for example. Peloton has become a household name. It's something that is used to describe an exercise bike or a way of exercising. But when you hear Peloton, you don't automatically think of a workout bike. So let's say that if someone wanted to come out and they wanted to trademark, the black workout bike because, it's black, it's red, that type of thing. That is really something that is descriptive, and it likely would not be able to get trademarked. I have lots of clients who are using a mark that's descriptive because it describes their services and it makes it easy for people to find them if they're Googling. But those types of marks are going to make it very difficult to trademark through the USPTO because it's not distinct and it's not unique. It's not original. It actually describes almost all the bikes in the market. So the USPTO is not likely to use that. So one of the things that the USPTO uses that is so important is a likelihood of confusion. So we're going to get into trademark searches a little bit later, but a lot of people believe that if they do a search and there's not an exact match, then that means that they're going to have a likelihood of being able to get their mark approved. And that's not true. There's actually a 12-point test that the USPTO uses for the likelihood of confusion. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So state trademarks. A lot of people used to get state trademarks before the internet really came into play. So a state trademark is really just going to protect you in your state. So where do I feel that a state trademark is going to be important? If you are receiving a cease and desist from somewhere, or you're trying to establish your common law right to use your trademark, a state trademark is going to be important. If someone were to come to me and tell me that they wanted to get a trademark, I would not advise them to get a state trademark. You're going to somewhat be protected by filing your registration through the Secretary of State. I think that many of you have probably seen that when you file for your LLC or for your corporation, you do a name search. Sometimes you can be denied because there's a likelihood of confusion. If you have a corporation already and you want to set up an LLC and the names are similar, you have to file a consent form saying that your board agrees with that name. So there are a lot of, I think, protections already kind of put into the state for your business name. So in my opinion, I would recommend filing a federal trademark and not necessarily a state trademark. Common law trademarks. So what is common law? A lot of people sort of get confused about what it means when you have a common law mark. A common law trademark is something that's used really as a last resort when you have to protect your business. And that's probably what most of you guys are doing right now. If you have your business name, you have your website, you're consistently using it on pamphlets, and you do not have a trademark, you would be protected by something that's called common law. So what does that mean? Let's say that, my business name is called the Love Law Group. If someone decided to get a trademark on the Love Law Group and they just started using their mark in 2021, would I be prohibited from using the Love Law Group, even though I started my law firm in 2017? Can they send me a cease and desist to tell me that I would have to stop using my trademark? The answer would be no, right? I have a common law right to continue to use my trademark in the way that I've used it since 2017. But what are the restrictions on that? I would be restricted to using my mark in the exact same way that I've used it right now. So right now, my firm is based out of Texas. I have some work that I do with other lawyers in other states where I've established a foreign LLCs, but I would be restricted just to those uses. I would not be able to expand out of that because I had not filed on the federal registry. So common law does give you some rights, but you're limited to the space that you are using it before the trademark is approved. And I think there's a couple of questions, so I'm going to go back and look at some of those. Can you create a corporation and place your established LLC inside? So I think what Sabrina is asking is, can my corporation be the owner or the member of an LLC? So I wouldn't say that you're placing it inside. What you're doing is basically having an umbrella corporation where your LLC is sort of underneath it. I agree with that. A lot of times people come to me and they want to talk to me about, we want to have a holding company. So we want to have a corporation or an LLC where, the corporation is holding all of the LLCs. And I think that that's a great idea if you have multiple services. But really deciding to have most of your corporations or having affiliates is not just a legal question. It's a legal question and it's a tax question, because when you think about a holding company is really holding something. So what are you holding within that corporation? Are you holding your employees? Are you holding all of your equipment? Are you getting the benefit of rolling up or rolling down some types of benefits where you're able to to get the tax benefit or to shield. Sometimes people set up LLCs and they just put all of their trademarks in one LLC. So the LLC owns all of the trademarks and then distributes across to other corporations or to other LLCs that are subsidiaries. So deciding to do that is really a conversation that you want to have to think of what are your long-term benefits, because sometimes you could end up actually just establishing more problems for yourself. I like to think that you want to limit your liabilities. So if I have a truck driving company and I also own a salon, I don't want to have those two liabilities mixed, because the risk of me being sued for what happens in my corporation, the risk of what happens for my truck, if I have a truck driving company, they're totally different. A good person that you may want to have a conversation with about this is really a commercial insurance broker. They're going to talk to you about risk. They're going to talk to you about separating risk and allocating risk. And that's going to help you to determine how you want to place things in an LLC or in a corporation. Okay, another question is it better to trademark your company's name over the actual image for your company, or should you trademark your logo? So that's going to be really an individual question that's going to be based on what is your logo and what is your company name. In my opinion, if your logo includes your company name and that's the only text that is included, I would advise you to trademark just as a word mark your company name. So if you establish a word mark, that gives you the ability to change your logo, to use your word mark outside of just your logo. But one example that you might want to use is the Nike sort of trademark, just the array of all the trademarks they have. So the swoosh is trademarked solely alone, just as the swoosh, because it's used without words. It's used without just do it. It's used without Nike. Sometimes it's used with all of those things, but just the swoosh alone as a logo still has the protection without Nike, without just do it. So are you using your logo in a way or in a capacity that does not include your business name? If the answer is yes, then you want to trademark your logo separately. I hope that answers the question. Okay, can you talk about, okay, let's go back up. One of the things that someone is asking about now is a C Corp and S Corp status. So C Corp and S Corp status is really going to be a tax status. In the state of Texas, when you are filing for your corporation, you are able to either just file as an LLC or you just file as a corporation. So you don't file your legal entity as a C Corp or as an S Corp. What you are doing is that you are setting up your corporation, setting up your internal structure, setting up your tax structures to ensure that you're either checking the box and being a S Corp or a C Corp. As an LLC, you're also able to claim an S Corp status in the way that you set up your taxes. So what that would mean is, are you filing taxes for you as an individual and also for you as a corporation? One thing that we're seeing and one thing that I would recommend is that you put yourself on payroll. So if you put yourself on payroll and you are giving yourself a W-2, you're paying taxes on your rate as opposed to just taking a draw. When you file your taxes, you're probably going to have a 1040 where you are filing taxes for yourself. You're using your W-2 as a business owner. And then you're also going to file taxes on your corporate or on your LLC or your corporation. The reason why that's going to be so important is that once you start to look at those tax levels, are you at, taxed at 25%? Are you taxed at sort of 32%? Are you paying self-employment tax? Being able to take all of those tax statuses is going to assist you in lowering your tax liability and also lowering your legal liability. So that's where filing as a C Corp, filing as an S Corp is going to be important. The reason why you want to talk to a tax professional is that once you decide to check the box, you can't kind of go back and change your tax status every other year, depending on what works for you. You have to sort of maintain that tax status over a couple of years once you elect to file as a certain tax status. What's the cost of trademarks? We'll get into that a little bit later, Ms. Dixon. So one of the questions is, my DBA is the face of my LLC. Is it required to be an LLC prior to applying for a trademark? So no. If your DBA is the face of your LLC, you know, that number one is a good thing. You want to have the legal liability protection and then go into a DBA. If you are a sole proprietor and you are filing as a DBA, you do not have the legal protections that an LLC or a corporation will give you. So if I was just LaMonica Love doing business as the Love Law Group, I do not have the protection that the Love Law Group PLLC doing business as. For instance, I have Love Your Trademarks, which is my trademark company. That's a DBA, but it falls underneath my law firm. Is it required to be an LLC prior to applying for a trademark? The answer is no, but would I recommend filing your trademark and your LLC owning it? I would say yes, specifically if you want a franchise, if you want to monetize your trademark. Your trademark is intellectual property. It's going to give you value. So if you decide, for instance, you know, to do presentations or to do those things, having your LLC as underneath having your trademark underneath your LLC is a way to establish ownership and value in your company. Now, let's say if you filed your trademark and you filed it underneath your individual name, that's okay. You can always go into the USPTO and assign or allow someone to use your trademark. That can be done through a licensing agreement or actually filing it through the USPTO where you're assigning your trademark to the LLC or the corporation. What about establishing a trust and structuring LLCs under, is this considered a holding company? You know, so it is. One thing that I don't recommend to individuals that are just starting off in business is to set up all these trusts and set up all these things, because you have to file taxes under each individual. So your trust would have to file taxes. Your LLC would have to file taxes. You have to have an EIN for all those things. You have to have a bank account for all of those things. So I think that you would want to be very careful and consult with an attorney about what you want to achieve ultimately. A lot of people believe that by establishing a trust and putting everything in the trust, that you have protections, which is ideal. The issue is that people don't put everything into the trust. And by that way, you're basically piercing the corporate veil, putting yourself into individual liability, putting your trustees into liability, and really not getting the benefits of the LLC. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of move on and then I'll come back to some of these questions. One of the things that we're going to talk about is how to find what types of marks can be registered. And this is something I'm going to tell you that most of the clients that I get for my trademarks are either individuals that have filed their own trademarks or they've gone on LegalZoom to file their trademarks. And the reason why they do this is that they go into the USPTO's database, they're doing an exact match search, or they are going through LegalZoom, which if it does not match exactly, LegalZoom will file your mark for you without really going through and telling you whether or not there's a likelihood of confusion on your mark. So, when we talk about the supplemental registry or the principal registry, what does that mean? Principal registry is going to give you the most protection. It's where you want to be. It is basically saying that you have a right to use your mark. However, now the supplemental registry basically says that you file this mark, the USPTO is denying it because they believe that either it's descriptive, it is not strong enough, it really only describes the goods, and you have to show them over 5 to 10 years that your mark is exclusive, no one else is using it. And after those 5 to 10 years, you can come back and try to apply for the principal registry. So types of trademarks. Types of trademarks are going to be business, trademarks. These are businesses that deal with goods. Service marks. These are businesses that deal with services. Collective marks and certification marks. Right now, sort of in this economy, we sort of use trademarks and service marks interchangeably. But if you want to get a little bit sophisticated and show that you understand the difference, once you start to use your brand name, your mark name, you automatically want to go ahead and attach that TM to it or that SM to it. This is TM, the TM that's at the top of your brand is not something that you can only attach to your brand name once you file your application with the USPTO. What this does is that this basically puts the public on sort of notice that you are saying that you have a common law right to your mark. Now, once you file it with the USPTO, you also want to put the TM. So once your mark is registered with the USPTO, you want to go ahead and change that TM or change that SM to the registered mark. So that's the difference. When you see a brand name and you see something that has TM, SM, or the R with the circle around it, the R with the circle around it is the strongest protection. That's going to mean that you are registered with the USPTO. And as soon as that happens, you want to update pamphlets, website, anything that you have to show that you have that federal protection. Okay, so now we're going to talk about reasons to get a trademark. A lot of times I'll see things where, people are going through and they are buying up domains, or say that somebody is putting something on the internet, they're buying your domain up, they are using your mark on their website, and you have to go through, or I have to go through as your attorney and go and let GoDaddy or let someone else know that this company is not using, that they are basically squatting, or they're purposely trying to deceptively use your mark. Having a trademark is one of the best ways to support that. So if I have a client and I need to send something over to ICANN or to another, to GoDaddy, if I can send a registered trademark certificate to these companies, it gets removed almost immediately. It's a lot difficult to do that when you do not have your trademark. If you choose trademarks for your businesses, it's going to help you across the US. So when my clients who don't have a trademark receive a cease and desist letter, they're going to be more likely to pivot their brand, to change their brand, if someone has a registered trademark, especially if you are a brand new business and you're trying to figure out what your messaging is, how to use things. A lot of times my clients decide they want to go on the speaking circuit. They want to create new products, and maybe they haven't done their due diligence to see if there's something out there that can create a likelihood of confusion. Having a registered trademark is the best way to stop someone from using your mark. Also, having a registered trademark is not enough. you also have to enforce it. So if you don't have your business name, you don't have a Google search set up so that when someone else is using your name, is using your trademark, you're not doing a good job of protecting your mark. One of the services that I offer for my clients is, if we've registered your mark, I'm going to monitor it every single day. I have a monitor on all of my registered trademarks. So if someone files a mark that is confusingly similar, if someone creates a Facebook page, if someone decides that they want to create an app, we are immediately sending these individuals cease and desist letters before they can start to monetize or really get their brand out there. Also, if you bring a lawsuit or you are saying that you've had a trademark for years and years, but you're not enforcing it, the USPTO can basically say that you are not enforcing it, or your brand has become so diluted in the marketplace that it's not valuable anymore. So one place that we see that is like with clinics. There have been lots of lawsuits where now people use Kleenex, people use duct tape, all of those to actually describe the type of product, when really those are all specific brands. So there are tissues that have now where it's become synonymous with Kleenex. Strong tape has been synonymous with duct tape. So these brands are constantly fighting and trying to defend their brand name because they work so hard for it. Counterfeit protection. We see this all the time now with brands like Louis Vuitton or Gucci, these types of things where counterfeiters are using their logos, using their brands, and their registrations are the only things that provide protection for them. Also, if you have a registered USPTO mark and you decide that you want to go to another country and get your trademark, having a mark that is registered here in the United States is going to help you secure that mark. And earlier we talked about using the R signal so that you can put the world on notice that your mark is registered. So next we're talking about a trademark search, and this is a little bit complicated. So I think that they're going to provide you guys copies of the slides, but I'm just going to go over an overview. Going to the USPTO and typing your trademark in does not mean that if you get an exact match that your mark is available. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. Also, going in and filing a mark and seeing that a mark is dead does not mean that you have protection. A lot of times, a lot of marks are dead is because they were refused registration by the USPTO. So a lot of times when I'm doing searches for my clients and they send me a screenshot of what they've done on their own, I have to go back in and go through all of the USPTO's office actions and issues and say, yeah, this mark is dead. And that's because it was refused registration by the USPTO because of a likelihood of confusion that it has with this mark. So seeing that a mark is dead does not mean that you can go and file that mark. It likely means that the USPTO actually refused this mark and the person could not overcome the refusal. And so now it's dead. So it's really important that you are doing your due diligence in your marks. Also in your application, that you are attaching a specimen that actually shows the mark used in commerce with how you are describing your brand. So a lot of times people want to do t-shirt marks. So let's say that if I started a movement and I wanted to get all these t-shirts to support the movement because I am going on the speaking circuit to talk about Fit Fridays, right? So I got all these t-shirts made and the t-shirts say Fit Fridays. Well, really your trademark is not in the class of your t-shirts. Your trademark is going to be in a class that promotes a movement related to fitness and traveling to encourage individuals to be fit. So if the only thing I attached to my application was t-shirts showing Fit Fridays, the USPTO is gonna deny that mark because I don't have a clothing line. What I have is a brand that is going around to encourage individuals to become fit, to develop a healthier lifestyle, to work out. And that is what should be trademarked, not the shirts. And a lot of people get that confused. If you are going to trademark a fitness brand, it needs to be whatever, a clothing line, it's whatever's on your tag. So when we think about Hanes is a clothing line. We've never seen really a t-shirt that has Hanes written right across the front, right? But the origination and the source of goods is going to be what's based on the collar or the tag of your shirt. Price and application length. So last year, the USPTO actually went up on their filing costs. They used to be a lot cheaper, but as of January 1st, a TEA plus cost application costs $250 and a TEA standard cost costs $350. And that is just for the filing fees. For every class that you are going to file in, you have to either pay $250 or $350 for every class. So if you are filing for a beauty line and also an apparel line under the same mark, that application, the filing fees would be $700, not $350. So that's something that's important to know. On the USPTO's website, it says that your application will be assigned to a USPTO agent within 3 months. So they're probably going to update that because right now it is taking at a minimum 6 months, and on some of my marks longer than that for me to even hear anything from the USPTO. So that's why it's even more important that you are doing the research on your trademark to ensure that there's no likelihood of confusion. It's actually something that's unique. It's not descriptive, because the timeline on getting a refusal back from the USPTO could set your business back almost a year if you had to rebrand or change everything. So it's definitely worth the amount of time that you're going to invest in hiring an attorney, getting a really good search, looking through everything that's out there on Facebook, on Twitter. So for a while, people were setting up all of these boutiques, and the boutiques had the name Sassy or Diva in it. One thing that I want to encourage people to do is to, if you type your business name in to Google and 30 things come up that are similar to your name, I would encourage you not to trademark that name and not to use that as a business name, because what that means is that if people are looking for you, they're going to find other people. You don't want your clients to have to search through Google, search through Yelp, search through Facebook to find you. So that's another reason why picking something that is unique is going to be so, so important. Someone asked, which is better, the plus or the standard? So with a plus application, if you are filing for something that is very standard, I think the plus is fine. But if you make a mistake in the filing of your application and the USPTO issues a office action or tells you that you did not include a disclaimer, or you did not include a consent, or you did not include information about the person that the mark is related to, you are going to have to file and pay an extra $100 to fix your application. So if you use a plus application, you need to be sure that you understand exactly what you're doing, because if the USPTO issues an office action, you're probably going to end up paying the $100 anyways. So what is the difference between your application filing basis? The biggest thing is that if you are using your mark in commerce, there is something called a use in commerce application. So that's going to be a Section 1A application versus a Section 1B application. An intent to use application just means I am getting ready to start my business. I don't have a website. I don't have any examples of it, but I have done a search. I know that this name is something that I've done my due diligence on, and I want to be able to start my business and launch my everything at the same time. So I'm going to file this application as an intent to use. So you can do that. What happens with that intent to use application? It's going to go through the exact process as something that's used in commerce, where it's assigned to an examining agent. A notice of publication is issued where it's sent to all attorneys, and they can basically look to see if they feel that it actually infringes on their client's registered mark. And then what's going to be issued is something called a statement of use. And what that, or a notice of allowance, what that allows you to do is we would have to submit you showing that you are using it in commerce, and then the mark would be approved. So once that is all issued, you would have to show how you're using it in commerce. There are extensions that you can use. So you can file 6-month extensions showing that you just need more time to use it. You would just have to meet within that timeline. Okay. So copyrights and trademarks defined. So what does that mean? We talked about a trademark. A trademark is really for like a brand to show your goods, your logos, phrases. A copyright is going to be more so for people who are creating literary, dramatic, musical artists, or certain other intellectual property rights. So this PowerPoint that the Carters are using, this is something that can be copyright. This is their presentation. They are doing this for the lonely entrepreneur. This is an artistic work that they are presenting. I think that someone asked earlier about theater, things that they're doing in theater. If you are, if you've written a play, if you've written a book, if you've written anything that has to do with a survey that you want to use, those are things that can be copywritten. Copyright, things that are copywritten, once you put it out into the public, you already have that protection, but you want to be sure you put that C on there, you get that done. But if it is something that you want to sell to other entities, you want to go ahead and file with the Copyright Office. It's like $35 to file. So go ahead and get that copyright so you can have that protection. They're filed with 2 separate entities, trademarks are and copyrights are. So copyrights, building blocks, what does that mean? It means that it has to be an original work. It means that you have the exclusive right to use the work. So a lot of times people will engage individuals to do work for them. If you're developing an academy or these types of things, you'll engage individuals. You need to be sure that your contract states that they are working as work for hire, and they are giving you a license. They're giving you the right to use this work. You have exclusive rights to use this. So that's going to be extremely important, that if you're using someone else's expression, you're using their songs, you're using all of these things. So even when we think about songwriters, do songwriters on their copyright? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It really depends on how you are giving individuals a right to use that. And as entrepreneurs, you need to understand what the agreements are that you're signing. When you sell something, are you giving them the exclusive right to use it where you're work for hire? Or are you giving them the right to use it, but you still own the copyright? You still own your work. You just want to be sure that you're checking to see that. So this is sort of what we talked about. How long does the individual sort of own these things? And this is an example of what's the difference between sort of a copyright and a trademark. So the term of, one thing that we haven't talked about is the term of protection. For a trademark, it's going to be good as long as the mark is used in commerce. but you also have to be sure that you are renewing your trademark through the USPTO. That's going to happen every 7 to 10 years. For a copyright, you have 70 plus years. So here's an example. What's the difference between a trademark and a copyright? Coca-Cola for soft drinks and Let It Go from the music Frozen. But I'm sure that Frozen is also trademarked as the name of a movie or something that Disney has produced, and they're using that probably to sell. So it's probably trademarked in the class of movies, Disney's dolls, Disney's towels, anything that they're selling at Disney, they probably have a Frozen trademark for. So a business tip, securing your domain or your business name does not mean that you own your intellectual property. So I just want to be very clear about that. So I just want to thank you all for joining this presentation. I think now I'll take more questions. If you need to reach me, you can go to my website, lamonicalove.com. If you're interested in trademark information, you can go to loveyourtrademark.com. I have a lot of whiteboard explainer videos. I also have a lot of FAQs there you can go to. And if you need to book a complimentary consultation, I can assist you with that too. So thank you guys so much. I think that this is so important for you to protect your brands. You've worked so hard on building them, and protecting your trademark or copyright is one way to do that.
Outstanding job, LaMonica. So selfish plug here. If you don't have an attorney as a business owner, you need one. And LaMonica is our attorney. But and I'm not saying that you have to use LaMonica, but why not? She's the best. She's very good at what she does. But no, honestly, definitely as a business owner, you need to have a CPA and a lawyer in your pocket. So you need to have those two people on speed dial if you don't. And definitely a lot of what you said, sometimes we think, and I know we're always trying to be as frugal as possible. So Rocket Lawyer may be our friend in a lot of ways. And as LaMonica mentioned, sometimes that can get you into trouble, a lot of trouble. And so a lot of things that are this important, we need to leave to the professionals. So LaMonica, outstanding presentation. We really appreciate your time. And we don't have a chance to really brag on the level of quality that we bring in front of you guys. And I don't know that y'all, I apologize because I kind of brushed over some of their introductions, but individuals like LaMonica are amazing qualities and resources in this community and beyond. To have her as a part of this panel is amazing. Mark Winters, who was up earlier, an amazing guy, brilliant guy, and happy to say that he serves on our board for our company. Fern Dawkins, obviously a very established franchisee, if you will, and just an amazing person, attorney as well. So there's really some great talent that has been up in front of you guys. They all blew away my presentation from this morning, and I'm glad to say that, because again, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Glad to have more people much smarter than me. Thank you so much for your time. This is the second installment. We have a third installment that will be coming in next month. Encouraging all of you guys again to make sure you reach out to your consultant and get your one-on-ones going. If you've missed the presentation, we'll make sure we get those presentations up for you. We'll be sending out a survey probably by Monday, just to get some feedback on this format. What I've said before, and I'll say it again, these types of coursework, this curriculum, it's very tough because we have so many different people and they're at different stages in their businesses, right? And they're in different industries and they do different things. So it's tough for us to try to give everyone what they need and what they want. We try to meet you where you're at, but it's very tough. So these are going to be more general. Hopefully some of it is valuable. Some of it may not be. But the bigger part is to deep dive into these topics with your consultant. And then that's really where you're going to get the value. And then the masterminds, I can't say enough about the mastermind classes. If you haven't had a chance to jump in on board with those, they're really, really helpful and refreshing. You're sharing stories and ideas with like-minded people that are in the room with you. So make sure you engage with those. But again, thank you for sharing your Saturday with us. We really appreciate you. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.